Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahe Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvisavahe Shanno Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramah Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Dharmavatu Tadbhaktaramavatu avatu mam avatu bhaktaram. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Bhadram Karnebhi Srinayama Deva Bhadram Pashevakshabhirayataha Sthirairangai Sastubhagam Sastanobhihi Vyasema Devahitayarayu Swasti na Indra Viddhasavaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastaso Arishtadevihi Swasti no Brihaspatirdadatu. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tatsat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Of the day, I would request our revered principal Swami Mahapragyanandaji Maharaj to please deliver the welcome address.
Today, we all have assembled here in this Asha Jyoti Conference Hall to attend the first Gurachand Saint Memorial Lecture. And I'm very happy that the students from 4 departments actually, economics only first year, apart from Department of Political Science, totally three other, and with political science 4 departments, students and faculty members are here. I'm happy to see the few PhD scholars also from our different departments, and guests are also here. On behalf of Vidya Mandira Parivar, I would like to extend a very cordial welcome to especially today's speaker who is present on the dais, Professor Shobhanlal Dattagupta. So he is very near and dear to our Vidya Mandira Parivar. We welcome sir. Professor Dattagupta is a formerly Surendranath Bhattacharya Professor of Political Science, University of Calcutta. Is one of the distinguished speakers today. In short, will arrive revered Srimad Swami Atma Priyanandaji Maharaj, who is the former principal of this college, former vice chancellor of RKM Very, Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Education Research Institute, and right now he is the pro-chancellor of the same institute. So he will be present here on the way. So I offer my humble pranams too to revered Maharaj Ji, and especially I welcome, as already told, the faculty members of different colleges and universities, and especially the IQSC coordinators and our research scholars. I welcome all our faculty members of these 4 departments, and especially our beloved students and the research scholar and UG PG students from other institutes. So the topic of today's discussion is mainstreaming ethics and morality in contemporary socio-political scenario. So I'm not a befitting person to say anything especially on this topic, but hearing the name itself, one can easily understand, especially the students of social science, that it is needless to mention how important the topic is. And to enlighten us, we have 2 distinguished speakers today. Shoborlal Babu already have come, and Atmapriyananji will be arriving. So again, once again, I welcome everybody today, and I pray to Thakur Ma Swamiji for a wonderful, the overall success of this entire session. Thank you.
Now, we will listen to the introductory remarks from our respected head of the department, Professor Indrashish Banerjee.
A very good afternoon to all of you present here today. Now, it is a privilege to be here on this podium, where my own teacher in Calcutta University is there, Professor Shoborlal Dattagupta, and listening to Sir's name, my own classmate from Presidency College, Bhaskar, is here. He is based in Dubai. He is not really into formal academics after his university days, but since Sir is here, he is here to listen. Pranams to Sir for making it today here. Swami Atmapriyanandaji was the principal of Vidya Mandir when I joined here, and he, in a sense or more, is a teacher to me as well. Prabhakar Maharaj will be here in a minute or so. In keeping with the tradition of Ramakrishna Mission, we started this event with the blessings of Atmapriyanandaji, who said that please go ahead, I'll join you. It is a privilege to have these esteemed speakers with us. The occasion today being the first Gorachand Sen Memorial Seminar instituted this year and is being organized by my department, the Department of Political Science at Vidya Mandir. Let me tell you a story. Now, this is a story of an ordinary man. A man whose life story is such that he stands out as an extraordinary person. A certain restlessness, a yearning for transcending boundaries, seeking the unknown, even while uncertainties abound and insecurities inevitable. Ami choncholo he, ami shodurero piyashi. This was some kind of a calling of the person about whom we are talking today, and in whose memory this session has been instituted. Born in a war-torn world in 1940 to parents Shamsundar from Shalkia in Howrah and Haripriya from Lahore, British India. He lost his father when he was only 3 months of age. It was his mother and elder brother, Harishankar, who brought him up amidst rising odds. In later life, he sought guidance from his Diksha Guru, the sage Bahira Baba, from Gyanganj. As the bards wrote, Ogo Shudur Bipulo Shudur, Ami Tumi je bajao Bakulo Bashuri. This search for the unknown, treading uncharted paths, was indeed his calling. On graduating, he served the Calcutta police during the tumultuous times of, especially in Bengal and Kolkata, of course in particular, the tumultuous times of left-wing extremism. He did something which was quite unusual, rather revolutionary, because in those times it was unusual for going outside endogamy, marrying somebody who is not within one's stated community, primordial identities. This is something that this gentleman did in the 60s. In the late 70s, he joined the Institute of Engineers and extensively traveled throughout the length and breadth of the country. This became his first of the two passions that he nurtured and developed all his life. The first was traveling and visiting places. And all through his life, he's been to Allahabad in the Kumbh Mela, Kedar, Badri, the pilgrim spots, Shankaracharyas, mudds all over the country and beyond. In the 80s, he again left and joined the oldest tea auction company in Asia, J. Thomas and Company, attending Neelart House as Mr. G.C. Sen, complete in suits and boots, with an unusual sense of punctuality and devotion to duty, something that took him even beyond his superannuation years after 1998, for a decade and more. He was associated since the mid-80s with Alumnorum Societas. I think Aditya is a member of that. He also is an alumnus of St. Xavier's. Now, why did a person attach himself to such pursuits? He was yearning to have the knowledge from the brightest of the bright, and St. Xavier's was one of those institutions. He took some decisions which actually were quite out of the way, one of which was sending his son, Shondipon, to a remote village where he studied his secondary in Ramhoripur, Ramakrishna Mission, in Bankura district. And the second was, he married off his daughter to a professor in Annamala University in Chidambaram, Tamil Nadu. It was really unusual for a person to send his two children to so faraway places, and he made it a point to inculcate all kinds of values in them. Now, this is something which we must hinge about. In about this time, he came in touch with and became associated with Shivpur Sriram Krishna Mandir, and came in touch with the legendary Adhikari, Rai Mohan Mukherjee. This was his second passion, the first being, as we said, traveling. And his second was acting. He was into performing in roles which were very close to his heart. Preme Thakur Sriram Krishna to Mahatma Tulasi Das. He acted in many a play which took him to many centers of the Ramakrishna Mission and beyond. His yearning for the eternal found mention in the pages of his diary that he maintained meticulously, where his restless soul sought refuge through his Guru, from whom he begged blessings and support to run his everyday life with devotion and dedication. He breathed his last at Chidambaram, which was quite sudden and unexpected, in 2008, and his last rites were performed there on the banks of the river Kaveri. On his demise, from the Russia Vedanta Center, the learned Swami Jyotirupanandaji Maharaj emailed Shandipan, and I quote, "Your father, I felt him always as a hero in his all bearings and heroically passed away." So a person who led a very simple, ordinary life, but stands out as extraordinary for us and posterity. He left behind his understanding of life as such, his passion to travel, to dream big, not to get snared in some kind of a security trap of which we are very much part of, and entrenched. He talked loudly and laughed even louder. His ability to mix freely with people cutting across all identities makes him stand apart from most of us. He went out of his way, in spite of his modest means and limitations, to reach out and help people. In all that he did and did not, his steadfast conviction in the Almighty guided him in leading an ordinary life, a life of integrity, simplicity, honesty. These are values that he cherished all his life and practiced all his life. Thus, this person led a value-laden life. And it is here where we find that there is a certain valuelessness or value deficit in society at large today. In our own individual spheres, we have so many limitations. But even then, we can learn from this person through his life that if we have the inclination and if we have the values of the right, the wrong, the good and the bad, then we too can, from our very limitations, Shivar Majhe Ashim Tumi, reach out for the less advantaged than us. It is here that particularly today's theme also becomes so relevant. As has been said, that you may not take an interest in politics, but that does not mean that politics will not take an interest in you. So when we talk about contemporariness, we talk about politics, we find a void. It is here that values, morality, ethics need to be there. It is all within us, and we can do in a very small way what is to be done, and that is the need of contemporary times. And we would like to remind ourselves that this perfection is already within us all, as Swamiji said. And let us remind ourselves that why fall in? Why fall in when you are born to stand out? So, not falling in, standing out, reaching out to people, to the community, cutting across all identities for an inclusive society, a society that is for all, transcending boundaries, transcending selfish borders. Thank you so much. Welcome to the first Gorachand Sen Memorial Lecture instituted in the memory of this extraordinary person who led an ordinary life by his son Sandeepan Sen, who is very much our own here. Thank you.
Now I would request senior member of the faculty of the Department of Political Science, Associate Professor Dr. Sandeepan Sen, to please present the theme of the seminar.
Namaskar. Good afternoon to everyone. Let me convey my heartfelt gratitude and deep regards to Revered Swami Atmapriyanandaji Maharaj and respected Professor Shubhanlal Dattagupta sir for kindly gracing this occasion and agreeing to share their valuable thoughts with us. Conveying my warm regards to Swami Mahapragyananda, Dr. Indrashish Banerjee on the dais, and to my respected teachers, esteemed colleagues, and other guests in the audience, and my greetings to my dear students. The theme of today's seminar is mainstreaming ethics and morality in the contemporary socio-political scenario. Let me now briefly explain the reason for choosing this theme for this seminar. Aristotle said man is a political animal, and only within the state a man is able to achieve the highest moral goals of his life. Thus, he who doesn't need the state is either God or a beast. In ancient Indian texts, Rajniti or Dandaniti was considered as the part of the Dharma Shastra, containing principles that used to guide a moral way of living. Manusmriti is an example of such a text. The word Rajniti literally means the highest moral principle. On the other hand, a parallel stream of ideas identifying politics as a power play has also been quite visible for centuries. Kautilya's Arthashastra or Machiavelli's Prince are some of the prominent texts professing such ideas. So politics has been viewed from both normative as well as realist perspectives. While the normative perspective focuses on justice as the key objective of politics, for the realist perspective, the ultimate goal of politics is fulfilling self-interest. Interestingly, the state is considered as a crucial instrument for achieving both these goals. For normative thinkers, from Plato to Rawls, the state is essential for securing justice, while Marx viewed the state as an organ for class exploitation, and for Gandhi, the state represents violence in a concentrated and organized form. In contrast, thinkers like Hobbes and Morganthau viewed the coercive power of the state as necessary for establishing order in society. The 20th century political thinkers like Gramsci and Foucault would argue the visible coercive apparatus of the modern state like police, military, intelligence agencies, bureaucracy are far less effective compared to more subtle, invisible and apparently innocuous setups like academic, cultural and religious bodies, mass media and even interpersonal interactions in extending hegemony of the ruling class over the entire society. The feminists, ecologists, communitarianists, postmodernists or post-colonialists all have sought to critique the manipulative nature of modern power politics from varied moral perspectives over the last few decades. However, in spite of being quite apprehensive of the appalling consequences of the power politics of modern times, they seem helpless in offering any viable mechanism to alter this. Now we live at a time when in two of the major ongoing conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, over 50,000 people have been killed, millions left injured and homeless, and unfortunately, nearly a third of them are children. It is a time when in our neighboring country, hundreds of people lost their lives in less than a month in a recent student-led anti-establishment uprising. It is also a time when millions of people taking to the streets throughout India and abroad with a demand for justice for a lady doctor brutally raped and murdered while on duty at a government hospital in Kolkata amid widespread suspicion of cover-up attempts by the concerned authorities. It is a time when atrocities against women, marginalized people, and minorities of different categories are on the rise across societies. A palpable deficit of trust on public officers and officials, law enforcement agencies, legal frameworks and processes, economic and financial institutions and practices, and the media operators is evident in political systems of different ideological affiliations and operational forms. Now, the question is, even if we find the realist position validated by our everyday experience, are we ready to accept it without any hesitation? Even if the self-seeking power politics is a reality, should we abandon all moral considerations in politics? We believe the answer would be an emphatic no. The exigencies of ruthless power politics would ultimately compel us to introspect over the moral foundations of politics, to search for the ethical principles capable of engaging with the crisis of our time more effectively. Because if power becomes an end in itself, the outcome is bound to be dreadful. History is full of such evidences. To prevent such a thing to happen, we have to learn to use power judiciously and sensibly. And for that, it is absolutely essential for us to engage in ethical and moral deliberations with all sincerity and honesty. Ethical and moral deliberations may involve a lot of complexities as they are quite subjective in nature and thus are difficult to produce consensual decisions within a reasonable time limit. Sometimes their outcomes may not seem quite practicable too, yet they are extremely significant as they are the only means at our disposal to place our conscience before our cravings, to prevail our humanity before our animality. Let me conclude by briefly referring to an interesting dialogue between Dhritarashtra and Gandhari in Rabindranath's epic poem, Gandhari's Abedan. It is a creative adaptation of a story from the Mahabharata, exquisitely depicting the significance of critical moral introspection at a moment of grave personal and political crisis. In this poem, when Gandhari passionately pleads for renouncing their abusive and corrupt son, Duryodhan, before King Dhritarashtra, the perturbed king retorts, Ki rakhibo tare tag kori? Gandhari, dharmo tabo. Dhritarashtra, ki dibe tomare dharmo? Gandhari, dukkho nobo nobo, putra shukh, rajya shukh, অধর্মের পণে যিনি লয়ে চিরদিন বহিব কেমনে দুই কাঁটা বক্ষে আলিঙ্গিয়া. The conversation goes on, and at a crucial point Gandhari makes a powerful observation. ধর্ম নহে সম্পদের হেতু মহারাজ, নহে সে সুখের ক্ষুদ্র সেতু, ধর্মেই ধর্মের শেষ. The message is clear. Ethical and moral deliberations, even though are difficult to pursue, or may not produce tangible benefits at times, are still important because they transform men of impulses to men of conscience. Now the choice is ours. This seminar, we believe, is going to help us to a great extent to find out how to make this choice prudently in the context of the tumultuous contemporary socio-political scenario. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now we enter the main body of deliberations for the seminar. We have amongst us two illustrious speakers who have been very kind enough to spare us some time from their busy schedules. The first speaker is Professor Shobhanlal Dattagupta, somebody who needs no introduction to a student of political science, who is the former Surendranath Banerjee Professor of Political Science at the University of Calcutta. He will speak on morality and politics in the Western intellectual tradition, a critical exploration.
Respected Maharaj, Swami Aptapriyanandu, distinguished members of the audience and the students. I first of all would like to congratulate the Department of Political Science of this very esteemed institution to take the initiative in organizing this kind of seminar on a subject which, frankly speaking, does not exactly belong to political science, because this is a kind of area which they have picked up for today's discussion. It involves actually a very complex issue, and the kind of things that they perhaps want us to discuss, these are mainly philosophical. The department is called, in fact, all over the country, we call it the Department of Political Science. But as students of the Department of Political Science, as teachers of the Department of Political Science, I really am not very sure whether the kind of components which are involved in this kind of discussion, well, since they are strictly speaking philosophical, as I was saying, I'm not very sure whether all of us are really quite familiar with these traditions, with the issues, with ideas involved in any kind of meaningful discussion of this kind of subject. In fact, I was in two minds when I was approached by the department to speak on this subject, because I was in two minds for one simple reason, that after all it's being organized by the Department of Political Science, but the issues that we'll have to address, they are not strictly speaking related to political science. They are frankly speaking, they are very closely related to philosophy. So when I was asked to address these issues, I more or less thought it like this, that perhaps it will be easier for the audience to understand if we try to do two things. One is exploring the Western tradition. Of course, it's a huge thing. It's a very vast subject. But at least highlighting some of the major issues involved in the exploration of Western tradition in regard to morality and politics. How politics and morality, they are interrelated, how in the Western tradition they have been addressed. This is one thing. The other thing is, and this I think is a problem which, not problem but a kind of question, that many of you will raise, and this is quite relevant, a very relevant issue, that after all today, the kind of things that have already been raised by the head of the department, by Sandeepan, that the kind of world, the restless world in which we are living now, extremely restless, extremely disturbing, extremely turbulent world in which we are living now. Well, what has it to do with the Western tradition of morality and politics, the interface of morality and politics? Because these are, well, this involves study of figures, study of ideas who are no longer there. Why should we talk about Aristotle? Why should we talk about, say, Machiavelli? How are they relevant? So these are the two things I will briefly try to discuss. One is a kind of broad overview, and I must acknowledge my limitation in doing this because it's not possible to say in the next about 30 minutes to give a complete overview in a very satisfactory manner. That is a complete overview of this entire Western tradition. I will just pick up certain issues, certain areas, and maybe I will try to focus on the methodology which perhaps we should adopt. I'm not saying we should adopt, rather we can think of adopting methodology which will perhaps enable us to go into the crux of the problem or problems involved in the study of this interrelation of morality and politics in Western heritage, Western legacy, Western tradition. And then at the end I will try to just work out some of the issues which emerge from this, why we should study these things today, what is the relevance of these things. Now at the very beginning, I would like to begin with 4 propositions. These propositions, I think, are we can just think about these propositions. The first one is, this actually is related to a kind of thesis, a kind of, say, debate also, related to a very eminent, very prominent, very eminent, very distinguished British political philosopher, Quentin Skinner. Now Quentin Skinner, he has worked for a long time on these subjects, especially he is an expert in, say, medieval European political thought, pre-Renaissance political thought, etc., etc. To some extent post-Renaissance also. Now Quentin Skinner, he, in a number of his writings, number of his, say, articles, he has made at one time he made a very interesting statement, and that led to a debate. I'm not going into all those complexities at length, just summing up. Quentin Skinner raised a question that, after all, a particular, say, thinker at one time, say in ancient Greece, or say in the medieval period, or say in the age of enlightenment, say a particular thinker wrote something. It became a kind of iconic text eventually. And we have considered that kind of text as very, very important, very crucial for understanding today's world. Should we really give that much importance to a classic text which was produced, say, 500 years back or 1000 years back? Is that really so important? And somehow he expressed in many of his articles that he's expressed his skepticism. Not that the texts are unimportant, but should we consider it that important? And as I said, it sparked off a very interesting debate later, but I'm not going to that. But what came out of this debate between Skinner and and later commentators on Skinner is this. That is the moot point I would like to focus on. That is, in the tradition of ethics, in the tradition of philosophy, particularly in the tradition of ethics, there are perhaps two kinds of ideas. There are some ideas which may be considered as eternal. Eternal ideas, eternal problems. And there are again some ideas, some problems, which may be considered as perennial ideas, perennial problems. Now this distinction between the eternal and the perennial, it has been framed like this in the subsequent debate, that eternal issues, eternal problems, they are something which are somewhat intangible, undefined. It has no beginning, it has no end. It's full of, say, mystery. Somewhat it gives you a kind of uncanny feeling, eternal. But whereas perennial issues are those issues which really are thought-provoking, which really connect the present with the past. These are perennial issues. So you have to distinguish between the eternal and the perennial, and when we are discussing this issue today, perhaps this distinction between the eternal and the perennial, it becomes very, very relevant. This is number one. Number two, the problem which I very briefly raised at the beginning, that we today are very much concerned with the teaching, research, etc., in the field of political science. But the issues that we are now discussing, these are, frankly speaking, not issues directly related to political science. They are issues concerned with political philosophy. And our problem is that in the name of science, we have reduced the study of political science over the years. This has a long, complex, checkered history. I am not going to that, how it happened. That is how political philosophy eventually became transformed into political science. The moment you, say, give political science the status, that is politics, the study of politics, the status of science, it creates a lot of problems. I'm not undermining the achievements that have been made in the name of the study of political science. Very good research has been done, all sorts of debates have emerged. But somehow I have felt, this is my personal feeling, that philosophy has taken a back seat in the study of politics. Philosophy, ethics, history, these somehow have taken a back seat. They have somehow become marginalized in the study of politics. The result is, please excuse me for making this kind of blunt statement. The result is the study of political science has of late become perhaps a little bit superficial, somewhat irrelevant. So when we try to associate our study of political science with the kind of problems that we are trying to address, we are trying to understand, we are trying to discuss. So this is one thing. I think but there was a time when even in actually in the European universities, years back, decades back, well, political science, there was no such coinage at all, political science. it actually came from the United States, and that has again a long history. I'm not going into that. But in European universities, even in 19th century or early years of the 20th century, study of politics meant study of political philosophy. So, without undermining this dimension of quote-unquote science in the study of politics, I think this lost dimension, that is this focus on philosophy and ethics, that should be restored. If not restored, at least they should be properly emphasized, they should be given proper recognition. This is my second proposition. The third one, this is a very, I would say, subtle distinction which is quite often made. That is ethics and morality. They are quite often mentioned interchangeably. Actually, there is no such consensus on this issue, understanding of this issue. But what do we mean by ethics and what do we mean by morality? Ethics normally is associated with the kind of, say, moral perception of a community. It's a collective perception, ethics. Community ethics, for example. So, it has an element of collectivity, totality, a larger morality understood in a larger framework, which is shared. That is the concept of sharing is there. Whereas morality is very much associated with a private sphere, the individual perception, my understanding, my moral sense, my moral values, which may not be shared with others. So this is a third proposition. And the fourth proposition, in fact, that will be the takeoff point for my the next phase of my discussion. That is, in the entire tradition of this interface of morality and politics, well, there are basically, I would say, two traditions. Basically, one tradition is when we are talking about, say, morality, moral values, and when we are trying to talk about this interrelation of morality and politics. There is an acknowledged understanding that it means certain absolute normative principles. These absolute normative principles, they constitute the sphere of morality. And these absolute normal principles are more or less acknowledged in the Western tradition, in the ideas shared by many writers, many thinkers, throughout centuries. This is one. Whereas there is another tradition which contests this. That is, there is no such absolute understanding of, say, moral values. The very notion of morality, this is relativistic, relative to society, relative to, say, history, relative to one's time, relative to society. So there is no such consensus on what should be called morality. Now I actually want to take off from this point, but very briefly I will, as I said, it's a kind of overview. That is, so far as the normative tradition is concerned, basically I would focus on two ways of looking at the normative tradition. One way is to look at the normative tradition in terms of the ideas of some of the great, thinkers, philosophers. Now, who are they? For instance, Aristotle, for instance, Kant, for instance, Hegel, to some extent, Bentham. Now, how do we relate them and how do we place them within the tradition of, say, normative understanding of morality? This is my first point. Now, let us look at Aristotle, for example. Aristotle's reference has already been given by Sandipan in his when he placed his ideas before us. Now, Aristotle, all of us know. I will not again go into any lengthy, elaborate discussion. But Aristotle's central point was this: that if a human being has to live properly, has to lead a meaningful life, then he has to live as a moral being. Therein lies the significance of his human identity. So morality is a component of that person. But this morality, how it will be generated? It's a morality which actually will emerge from his association with the community, with the polis in which he is living. So when in Aristotle, many of you know it, this statement is made and it has been misinterpreted in many ways eventually. The state is the state, that is the polis, is prior to the individual. Prior to the individual in what sense? Does it mean that the state or the polis, it will swallow up the individual? No, not at all. It's prior to the individual because only by living in association with the community, the sense of morality, it will be generated in your mind. You become a moral person. If you dissociate yourself from the community, from the collective, this moral collective, then you cannot live as a proper human being. That was very simply Aristotle's understanding. It was later picked up by many authors, many writers, and actually this idea, centuries later, flowed into the ideas of Hegel. Basically the same thing. And there you have the distinction between Kant and Hegel. For Kant, morality is essentially private. Private, why? Because Kant's central focus was on recognition of the autonomy of the individual. The German word which Kant uses, that is moralität. Moralität means actually this sense of morality, which is very much your own sense of morality. Your private person, your own private autonomous autonomy, that has got to be respected. Whereas, and this was Hegel's response to Kant, and Hegel's main objection against Kant is, and there you will find the link between Aristotle and Hegel, it was this: Hegel's understanding was, to put it very simply, the understanding was this, that as a human being, if you want to say, live as a proper human being, the typical Aristotelian argument, then you will be shaped by, you will be molded by your community. And Hegel used the term Sittlichkeit. Sittlichkeit, when in English it has been used as social ethics. Actually, it comes from the original German word Sitte. Sitte means actually this, what phrase? That is this collective ethics sort of things. That is the moral sense of the community. If as an individual you just immerse yourself, or you are just preoccupied with your private sense of morality, that gives you a sense of autonomy, but that will not make you a proper moral person. You can become a proper human being only by being associated with the community, with the collective. As I said, this is typical Aristotelian argument. So this was actually a Kant-Hegel distinction, to put it very, very simply. Now, the interesting thing is this. You may ask me, why I have jumped from Aristotle to Hegel? What about Machiavelli? Yes, Machiavelli comes in. But Machiavelli cannot be clubbed with this tradition. This is a tradition which broadly focuses on certain universal normative understanding of moral values. What is good, what is bad, etc., etc. And it will be basically based by or shaped by the community. But, and these are really very, very fascinating issues in the exploration of the intellectual history of the West. So far so good. But then, there is a tradition which is not always very much highlighted, but I think it's very relevant in today's world now, particularly in a country like India. That is, there is another tradition which is known as the conservative tradition. In conservative tradition also, there is an understanding of morality. But it's not always highlighted. Because there is a feeling that those who are conservatives, they perhaps have no sense of, they're at least bothered about the notion of ethics or morality. To put it more explicitly, when in today's world we are talking about conservatism, conservative political thought. Conservative political thought itself has a very long history and very, very complex history. I'm not going into that. I'm simply trying to highlight one point. In today's world, when we are talking about this conservative outlook, conservative ideology, what are their manifestations? For instance, in today's world, we quite often refer to, say, fascism. We quite often refer to, say, extremely right-wing ideologies. Now, what we perhaps quite often forget, or somehow we just do not properly acknowledge it. We do not acknowledge it for the simple reason that there is a kind of perception which works in our mind that fascism, right-wing ideologies, well, they are against morality. They have no sense of morality. They are immoral persons. The ideologies are immoral. Their perceptions are immoral. So then they, conservative, right-wing perceptions, they have nothing to do with morality. Now this is a blatantly wrong understanding. Fascism, right-wing ideologies, they have a very strong sense of morality, which is their own exclusive domain. Now, what is that domain? What is this conservative, right-wing, fascist understanding of morality? Very interesting. Very interesting in the sense, and one has to be very cautious also. Interesting in the sense that you will apparently, again I use the word apparently, I underline the word apparently you will come across a very strong similarity between the Aristotelian understanding, Hegelian understanding, and this conservative right-wing understanding. But you have to be very, very careful. Now, what is their understanding? This understanding, to put it very briefly, has two dimensions. One dimension is fascist ideology, or any kind of right-wing ideology in any part of the world. It starts off with this perception that is, there is a transcendental world. This transcendental world constitutes the central focus of these ideologies. Now, what is meant by that? Transcendental world, which is heavenly, godly, supernatural, divine, whatever. It is intangible. It cannot be reached by the mortal human beings. But it's real. It exists. And if I, as a human being, have to live properly as a human being, as a meaningful person, then I have to somehow ensure that this notion of the divine, that this notion of eternal, divine, transcendental, well, it has to somehow come into my psyche, in my consciousness. This, I have to share my identity with that transcendental. Now, how do you do it? Yes, it can be done. It can be done, no, not through meditation, not through prayer, the kind of things which respected Maharaj will endorse. No. They are not at all saying any of these things. Their understanding is that this sense of the divine, the sense of the infinite, sense of eternal or absolute, it is manifest in society. It is manifest in society through certain persons, through certain institutions, through certain structures, and you as I as a human being, I will eventually have a feeling that if I sacrifice myself for the promotion of these institutions, structure, these persons, for the leader, then that will give me true moral satisfaction as a human being. As a human being, that will be, or that should be, my destination. When a Nazi leader gives a call that you have to sacrifice your life in the interest of the German nation, in the interest of the state, yes, for me, it's extremely important. I not only feel proud of this sacrifice, I also eventually understand that this act of sacrifice connects me with that divine. This is a typical fascist notion of morality. That you are charged with this feeling. This feeling gets into your psyche, into your consciousness. That when we are burning the Jewish homes, when we are sending women and children to the concentration camp in the gas chambers, yes, that way we are fulfilling a moral mission. And by fulfilling that moral mission, I am connecting myself with that divine, sense of the divine. So the divine, the sense of the infinite, that is manifest in the structures, in the society, in the institutions. Now, as I said, you have to be very careful, because this apparently, as I again repeat, this apparently establishes the point, or this apparently gives you a feeling that this is exactly the kind of thing that Hegel also said. Hegel also emphasized the importance of the state. And even, in fact, there was a time when books were written with this kind of title. In fact, when I was a student years back in Calcutta University, we were asked by one of our teachers in a say class on Hegel as a book which we should consult. The name of the author, I still remember, the name of the author was some McGovern. That is not important. The title is very significant. From Hegel to Hitler. That was the title. That is, Hegel is the precursor of that is Nazism, fascism, etc. Much later, of course, this kind of conservative estimation that changed. But there are these misperceptions. That apparently there are certain similarities, but there are very subtle, nuanced differences between, say, one thinker and another thinker. Although, say, if we are not careful enough, then we will make this kind of mistake. So anyway, these are some of the points which broadly are associated with this normative understanding, that is, morality means certain universal values, universal judgments, universal perceptions, etc., etc. But now I come to the other tradition, which again here is also there are controversies, debates. It's not possible for me to go into all these debates, but just to give you a kind of, say, broad understanding of what this other alternative tradition talks about. That is, morality, it is not something which connotes certainly a set of universal values. Universality is out. Morality, it is essentially a relativistic concept. It is related to time, it is related to history, it is related to society. There is no such universal thing. Now, I will very quickly just draw your attention to three thinkers who belong to this other tradition. One is Machiavelli, the second one is Marx, and the third is Nietzsche. Three thinkers. But again, I would say these are thinkers who it is difficult actually to just brand them as a thinker who either say was against universalism or in favor of universalism. who really questioned universalism or was soft against the opposite trend. So these debates are very much open. Let me pick up Machiavelli, for example. Machiavelli, there is a very standard popular perception about Machiavelli. And at one level, this perception is right. What is that perception? That Machiavelli actually separated politics from morality. Machiavelli's notion of secularization of politics, etc., you know these things. So I'm not going to that. So Machiavelli, that way, in fact, some commentators have used the word amoral understanding of politics. Politics has nothing to do with morality, which is, in a way, totally against, say, Aristotle's understanding, Hegel's understanding, etc. Now, and that led to actually what later came to be known as secularization of politics. There are two domains. One is politics, the other is morality. Politics has its own principles, has its own rules. Morality has its own principles. In fact, why it happened, why Machiavelli became so much obsessed with this question, that again has an interesting history, because it was an attempt actually to question the authority of the church, which to a large extent shaped the notion of morality in medieval Europe. So Machiavelli was writing at a time when medieval Europe, its value system, its ideas, its philosophy, these were all collapsing. So that way it is understandable. But later, some commentators have, commentaries have come up in regard to Machiavelli. I'm not going into all those things, but I would particularly draw your attention to a very interesting reading of Machiavelli's, and thereby questioning this understanding that Machiavelli was totally indifferent to the question of morality. He was concerned with politics, power, etc., etc. That is, for Machiavelli, morality was something which just did not matter. Machiavelli was concerned with power politics, how the prince will rule, etc., etc. But as I said, this very common interpretation of Machiavelli, this rather popular perception of Machiavelli, it has been questioned by many. Among them, I would like to highlight the observations, very perceptive observations, made by one very distinguished thinker of, say, post-war France, Louis Althusser. Althusser, this book is not very widely known here, although the book actually was translated from French into English in 1999. But somehow I am surprised to find that in discussion of Machiavelli, Althusser's reading of Machiavelli, it's not there, it's not just discussed. Now what is Althusser saying in that book? Althusser's understanding is this. He says that if we do a close reading of Machiavelli, then we find that in Machiavelli's perception of prince, what is most important? But this important dimension of prince, it's somehow not there in an apparent reading of prince. In a superficial reading of prince, you will not come across this dimension. But if you indulge in a very deep, close reading of prince, then this dimension comes up. That is, what Althusser says is this. I just give you a summary. Machiavelli's prince is simply a symbol of power. Is that enough? Yes. Machiavelli's prince stands for power, stands for the national unity of Italy. All these things are true. But ultimately there is one thing. In Prince, there are passages, there are words, there are expressions. And remember, Althusser read Machiavelli in original Italian. So what Althusser says is, why the prince is looking for power, why he is calling for the unity of Italy. Yes, he is a symbol of power, future Italy. He projects himself as, or he is projected by Machiavelli as the future of Italy. True. But what is the purpose? Is he doing it to satisfy his own self-interest, selfish interest? If that be so, then the prince becomes a tyrant. No. The prince has in him the simple idea that he has to be the leader of the masses, the people. Is not prince who wants to indulge in, say, kind of satisfaction of self-interest. The prince is the leader. He wants to project himself, or rather Machiavelli wants to project the prince as the leader of the masses. From where Gramsci actually picked up his notion of modern prince. This is how Machiavelli, this is how Althusser is building up a bridge between Machiavelli and Gramsci. Very, very interesting reading. In fact, just to give you a hint, if you read the last paragraph, just the last paragraph of Machiavelli's Prince. Prince is a very small book. So if you read the last paragraph of Machiavelli's Prince, then you will come across what should I say? You'll have a kind of, say, peculiar kind of experience if you read that passage. That passage tells you essentially just one thing. The prince is coming. Imaginary prince. The prince is not there. The prince, that is a invocation of the prince. The prince is coming. He is not there. The future prince, imaginary prince. And the people of Italy, that is very important. The people of Italy, they are welcoming him. They are waiting as if for his arrival. Just this is the essence of the passage. An imaginary prince, he is not there. People are waiting for his arrival. That is implicit meaning is, under his leadership, a new Italy is born. It has nothing to do with the existing situation in Italy. Nobody knows whether it will happen or not. But this is how Machiavelli imagines a future Italy, under the leadership of an imaginary prince who will connect himself with the masses. If that be so, the question does it mean that Machiavelli actually is separating morality from politics? This is how Althusser is looking at Machiavelli. This is one thing. The other thing is Marx. Here again, it's an open-ended question. Nobody knows. There is no consensus on this question. Some people say Marx was actually, he was anti-normative. He was a relativist. True. If one goes through Marx's text, you will not come across any passage, again apparently, you will not come across any passage, any writing where Marx is very much, say, concerned with the question of justice, then what is good, what is bad, what should be the values of a communist society of the future. No. Marx is least concerned about these things. In fact, Marx is saying that I do not believe in these so-called values of justice, equality, honesty, goodness. No, I'm not concerned. Because they are all ideas which have been shaped by a particular economy, by a particular society, by a particular culture, so they are all relative. So that way, Marx also belongs to this tradition. But again, there is a problem. There are now many commentaries available. There are many writers who are looking at Marx from an altogether different context. They say, no, it would be wrong, it would be extremely, say, a superficial exercise to brand Marx as one who is against morality. Not at all. How do you prove it? Yes, apparently there is no such text, no such passage, no. But, they say, you read Capital, you read Marx's writings on alienation, you will come across words, you will come across expressions where capitalism, its brutal nature, its brutal face, it is being described by Marx in such a way, by using the kind of words, the kind of expressions, which very strongly suggest that Marx is writing all these things guided by an innate sense of morality. A morality which is against, say, exploitation, against inequality, against injustice, and very much in favor of the working masses, but not explicitly presented. So this alternative reading of Marx, that becomes very, very important. And finally, Nietzsche. And from Nietzsche, I'm not going into those discussions. From Nietzsche, what follows is postmodernism, postcolonialism, feminism, and all these things to a large extent. Nietzsche, yes, true, Nietzsche almost explicitly rejects any notion of, say, any standard notion of morality which is stable, which is eternal, which is, say, normative. Because Nietzsche's entire focus is on just two things. One is, these things are unstable, these are momentary, they have no stable, permanent basis. I reject them. I reject them. What I believe in is a kind of rupture, disruption, instability, which in a way later gave rise to postmodernism and all these things. So this is more or less a kind of, I'm not very happy with the way I put it, because these are very, very complex issues. But I will just end up by saying that if we look at this right from, say, Aristotle to Nietzsche, then what we come across is two things. Number one, it is very difficult to come to a final judgment regarding the kind of understanding which was shared by these thinkers. As I explained to you, that is, in the case of Machiavelli, in the case of Marx, these questions become very, very crucial. Whether it is really very safe to just brand someone as normative or anti-normative, relativist or normativist. This is one problem. So we have to keep our mind very much open, and we have to very carefully go through the texts. This is number one. So it is very difficult to pass any final judgment on the kind of understanding that they had on this interrelation between morality and politics. This is one. The other thing is that in today's world, and that's why I at the very beginning raised this point, in today's world, when we are talking about politics, then you just cannot divorce it from the notion of ethics, from the notion of morality. But to do this is understandable, that we are not in a situation where we can any longer talk about, say, amoral politics. It's not possible. So we have to associate morality with politics. They are, say, just intertwined. They are inseparable. But the point is, if you have to establish this inseparable connection between morality and politics, then for that you require, or all of us perhaps require, a more careful reading of philosophy, a more careful reading of the history of ethics. Unless we do that, just a say very superficial way of saying that morality and politics, they are inseparable, that will not help us. If we have to rethink the whole issue, then we demand a fresh perspective. And if we have to develop this fresh perspective, then we have to look at our own discipline. Since this seminar is being organized by the Department of Political Science, I know Department of Political Science on its own cannot do anything. But this point, I think, should be highlighted, that in our course structure, in our syllabus, I'm not saying that the components which are associated with the study of political science, quote-unquote science, I'm not saying they are unimportant, but the elements of philosophy, elements of ethics, and elements of history, there should be proper inputs of these things in our study of, again, quote-unquote political science. Thank you.
The next illustrious speaker is Swami Atmakriyanandaji, who is the Pro-Chancellor of the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Educational and Research Institute. He will speak on ethical and moral values, Vedanta Vivekananda perspective, and Mahatma Gandhi's experiments.
I'm so happy to see my old friends here. You know, I served the Vidya Mandir. I had the privilege of serving here for 28 years, teaching physics and doing some administration. My old friends are Jyotishankar Babu is here, and Shantanu and so many others. And young friends, some of whom I know. Sandeepan, of course, is our student. So mainstreaming ethics and morality in contemporary socio-political scenario, we usually begin this with what is called a Shanti mantra. So all of you can please join me. The well-known mantra you should have been repeating every day. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahi Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. May the Supreme Being protect us both, the teacher and the disciple, by revealing to us the true nature of knowledge. May the Supreme Being protect us both, the teacher and the disciple, by revealing to us the application of that knowledge. May we both strive together for the acquisition of knowledge. May the knowledge and the wisdom that we acquire be effective and illuminative. May there be no dissension between us. Om, peace, peace, peace. I'm very happy to have been called upon to speak on this subject. I don't know much of political science except what I picked up bits and pieces from conversations with my teachers when I was here. And now we had an excellent talk by Professor Shobhanlal Dattagupta, covered a vast ground. He has enormous scholarship, as you know. So I will just present some of my thoughts, perhaps not very cogent, but nevertheless very spontaneous. All of us know what is politics, not the present day politics. In general, what politicians should do, how they are empowered by the citizens of a country to serve the country in the best interest of the country, so that, as Swami Vivekananda used to, quoting from Buddha, used to say, Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya. For the good of the many and the welfare of the many, so that all the citizens can be happy, materially happy, intellectually keen, alert, and if possible, spiritually elevated. The dharma of a Raja is well defined in our scriptures. What a Raja should supposed to be doing. And morality and ethics, whether they are synonymous, this debate has been going on. Some of the authorities on this subject, like McKinsey and Lilly and so on, these authors have clearly said morality and ethics are interchangeably usable. So, to avoid this controversy, we have put, the organizers of the seminar has put both morality and ethics. You choose one or the other, you choose both, but don't reject both. Now, Swami Vivekananda and Vedanta had their own ideas of morality and ethics. What is the relationship between philosophy, morality and religion is also an important topic of discussion. Philosophy deals with truth, as we know, and philosophy is very harsh. It lays down certain principles. These principles have to be followed, and these are the philosophical principles by which you should be governed. Morality, they say, is part of philosophy. Certain values are given to you, and these values need to be followed so that the society and the individual may be happy. Once again, as was beautifully pointed out by Professor Shobhanlal Dattagupta, there's an individual aspect to it, the collective aspect. What I may consider moral, collectively it should not be considered. And what is my value system should not and need not be imposed to the collective. This is perhaps a mistake many of our leaders have done and are doing, that I may have an inclination to do something, I have a set of values that need not be imposed on the people who are under me. If I am the principal of Ramakrishna Mission Vidya Mandir, I have a set of values, so I tend to impose it on the collective and the students, being very obedient and docile, they follow it, but with some hesitation sometimes. But they can't hand and heart accept everything of what is being told to them. So the individual and the collective, what we call in science as microcosm and macrocosm, this equation, this identity is also extremely important. The microcosm and the macrocosm are built in the same plan. That's what physics says. Philosophy also agrees. But religion is something a totally different ball game, because religion has to deal with people, with human beings in flesh and blood, with all their ideologies and weaknesses, with all their fumblings, all their foibles. Unlike philosophy, religion can't be too harsh. You have a set of values and impose it. People are struggling. They may fail, but philosophy, justice. This is the justice and you have to pay for it. Religion has to be flexible. Religion has to be customized to the temperaments of people. And Swami Vivekananda said, very seriously, I want as many religions and sects as there are people in this world, so that every one of the human beings will have a chance to attain the highest goal. Because human minds are extremely different. Humanity is so complex in a sense. In another sense, humanity is very simple. And the human mind, particularly the educated mind like ours, we claim to be educated, has an uncanny knack of making simple things complicated. If you put it in a very simple way, you are not considered a scholar. A scholar is a person who can make very simple things highly complicated and present in such a way nobody understands. There is a debate between literature and science. Those who study literature and don't do science, always they have their loggerheads. Among the student community also you can see, and the faculty also. The literature people claim that they have soft heart, they have very sensitive mind, and they're open to nature. Akashe, batashe, সব সময় ঘুরে বেড়াচ্ছে. The akashe, batashe is a very important phrase in Bengali. If you want to have an impressive talk, begin by talking about akashe, batashe. And science is very precise. You have to define whatever you say. When you say something, define it. There is an interesting anecdote with Paul Dirac, who was a very great physicist, mathematician in quantum theory, and Oppenheimer, although he was a physicist, is very much drawn to literature. He was very fond of Bhagavad Gita, as you know. The bomb blast, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the blinding flash, he described as the light of 1,000 suns, according to the Bhagavad Gita. Maybe Surya Sahasrasya Bhavet Yugamadutthida. So they were good friends. Oppenheimer reading some literature. Paul Dirac comes along. What are you reading? Hey, what are you reading? Reading literature. You see, you know the difference between literature and science? In science, we take up something which is unknown and explain it in such a way it becomes known. In literature, they take up something which is well known and describe it in such a way that it becomes unknown. There's one little fireworks between these two people. Human being needs both. That's the beauty of life. You can't say, I need this, I don't need that. A good human being needs everything to be able to deal with other human beings. In Vedanta, which is called the Upanishads, the core philosophy of the Hindu religion, morality and ethics are called dharma. It's a very interesting word, dharma, which cannot be called religion or philosophy morality, ethics, social consciousness. It's all this and much more. It's a way of living. Even Buddha, who rejected the idea of God in the way we think about God, and rejected the idea of a permanent soul, the Atman, which Vedanta stresses, but founded and propagated a religion which is even now extremely vibrant, particularly in the Western countries, for 2,500 years. But Buddha emphasized dharma, which he called dhamma in Pali. So dharma is a concept which is not religious, which is not philosophical, which is secular, as Dalai Lama keeps on saying. His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about secular ethics. He's propagating this everywhere. Can there be ethics and morality without a reference to religion, without reference to God, without reference to philosophy? In childhood, most of us have been taught by your parents, be extremely careful. Others may not see you, but somebody is looking at you from above. And he will punish you later, or you will come to grief. As children, we ask, where is he? He is not seen anywhere. You don't see him, but he sees you. They are the kind of things which, just to make people moral and true. But now, if the sanction of religion is gone, which is happening now more and more, is it possible to impose morality and ethics? Can there be morality and ethics without reference to religion, without reference to God, without these philosophical principles? Then what is the basis of that morality? This question was addressed by Swami Vivekananda. I'll come to that later. Dharma was the basis of the entire philosophical, spiritual structure, the mansion of India, ancient and the modern. And what is dharma? It is defined in a beautiful shloka. Most of the students will know. In the Vidyarthi Brata it is incorporated. Shruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chapyavadharyatam atmana pratikulani paresham samacharet. Now listen to the essence of dharma, and having understood this essence, practice it. What is that? That which you feel is not beneficial to you, don't do it to others. Positively put, the golden rule in the Bible, do unto others what you would others do unto you. And every religion has the same golden rule. The golden rule is treat others, think of others as your very own. Atmopamena sarvatra samam pashyati yoso arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. The Bhagavad Gita says, Atmopamena sarvatra, treat everybody as your own self. Suppose you harm somebody, how would you like if you are harmed by somebody else? I don't like it, then don't do it to others. Positively put, you do something to others as if he is your very own. Then you will realize it is not as if he is very own, he is your very own. This is the principle of connectivity. Dharma comes from the word root, verbal root called dhatu, which is dhru dhatu. Dhru dhatu means to hold, dharana, dhriti. Dhri means to hold something. The modern word is sustainability. Now we talk about sustainability everywhere, sustainable agriculture, sustainable development, and United Nations has given us sustainable development goals. SDG. Sustainability means that it should be sustained through the changes in time and place. The world is constantly changing. Once again, the professor who spoke before me was talking about whether there is anything permanent, whether there is anything which is constant in life. This is old debate in science as well as philosophy and religion. Is there any constant in life? Buddha initiated this debate. Everything is constantly changing. Can you think of anything in life which is constant? Look around, look at yourself. In the human body, everything is constantly changing. Biologists and physiologists will have you believe, and it is true, that your body is constantly changing. Every cell is changing every moment. They say after a few years your entire body has been reconstituted because all the cells are gone and replaced by new cells. But still you say, I am the same person. Is it not physiologically and biologically a wrong statement? It is, but still you have the sense of identity. In philosophy, it's a big question of identity. There's a joke about identity. A boy said, my father, who is a woodcutter, has been using the same axe, Uthar, for 20 years. Only changed the blade 10 times and the handle 20 times, the same axe. So there's a sense of identity by which you feel you are the same person. You are changing every moment. You were a child, and you grew up, Komaram, Yavaram, Jara, then you become old, but still you feel that you are the same person. I have been a child, I grew up as a youth, I am now old. Who is that I? These are questions which can't be wished away. So if everything is changing, is it meaningful to talk about something which is unchanging? Buddha rejected the idea of changelessness. Long before Marx did it, Buddha said there is nothing which is unchanging, and therefore why do you stick to something which is unchanging? Why do you talk about it? Where is that Atman sitting there which is unchanging? Where is the God who is unchanging? All that you see is only change. The only changeless entity in the world is change. So sticks to change. Now, is it possible to understand the nature of change? How changelessness and change can be juxtaposed and understood as complementary to each other? Or how changeless and change are one and the same thing? You look around. The planet on which we are sitting, is constantly rotating. Are you aware of that? Earth is rotating. Earth is not only rotating around the sun, it is rotating around itself. Not only rotating, it is rotating like this. Oblique axis. And moon is rotating around the earth. Everybody is rotating at everybody else. When we were taught geography in school, we used to be very scared. There was a lady teacher who taught, ma'am, if you're scared, suppose the moon misses just half a second of change, the moon will come and dash at us. I hope it will not happen. No, it will not happen. How do you know? We swear by science and say the scientific principles say that this cannot happen. Are you sure of that? Faith. Science is the only discipline which is based on faith. Religion also you can inquire, but science they don't inquire at all. Having done science all my life, I'll give you a simple example. Have you studied Newton's laws of motion in school? Everybody studies. class 5, class 6. Newton's laws of motion, 1, 2, 3. I don't believe in Newton. I don't have faith in Newton. As a scientist, if you say I do not have faith in anything, don't believe Newton. Then what do? Rediscover Newton's laws again. Go on rediscovering everything, whole civilization will come to a stop. You have to take certain things for granted, believe them because these laws have been tested, time tested, accepted, documented by people who knew what they are doing, and therefore you take it to be true and proceed. If you don't have faith in friction, you can't walk in this floor. Friction says, it is friction which holds you when you are walking. Sir, I don't believe in friction. So at every point you are afraid to walk. Are you sure the roof will not collapse and fall on your head? God forbid. It has happened many times in many places. You are always looking at the floor and says it may fall in it. The life will become absolute chaos if you don't have faith. Every moment of life you are believing. And faith in the laws of nature is called science. Faith in that supreme intelligence which governs nature is called religion. That's all. Faith is there everywhere. Otherwise we can't move. I used to give a simple example to my students. Nowadays the students don't do shaving themselves. Some of the elders have beautiful beards. I asked the student, do you go to the salon? Or they said, no, I find it very difficult. Mustache is a problem. They want a beautiful mustache. Exactly, it has to be symmetrically placed on either side. So people are afraid what you can do. Sometimes it will be more and less. It's safer to go to a salon, to a barber. Nowadays I hear it's very expensive also. So people barb, skill of a barber, if you open this, it's a skill development course you can develop in that. We are not getting good barbers. We are not getting good cooks. In the university when we started, I said, I am not interested in professors, but I want to go cook. And we need a barber because we constantly shave our heads. So you go to a barber, and then he shaves you. Tada! Connect. He just puts it, razor there, you are gone. But you have full faith that fellow will not do that. Then I tell the students, if you have so much faith in the barber, why don't you have half of that faith, the supreme God who has created you, who is moving around? So why I am saying is because changelessness and change is a big issue in religion and philosophy. And among the political philosophers, which was mentioned by the professor, people like Marx never believed in changeless, anything which is shashvata, changeless. Everything is only change. And therefore, constancy of morality and ethics, etc., need not be taken as absolute. It should be contextual. The postmodernism later on developed it, and those who were opposed to it used to call it postmodernism. They called it fashionable nonsense. There are debates on that. Sokal was a person who wrote a beautiful paper on postmodernism. Then finally it was found out to be a hoax. So this question has been agitating the human mind, change versus changelessness. Einstein's theory of relativity says all the frames of reference are relative. But the second postulate says the velocity of light in vacuum is a constant. Unless there is a constancy to back up change, unless there is a changeless entity over which change is superimposed, you cannot understand either change or changeless. Now, morality and ethics, individually and collectively, are there absolute? Are there some absolute values? Suppose you say truth. I'll take a simple example. Most of you would have read something of Mahabharata, and Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, has been criticized in the Mahabharata and later times also by people, how he manipulated to win the war. Did he do the right thing? Do you think he did the right thing? You can't say yes or no. In the context he had to do it. I'll give an example from Mahabharata. You have heard of Karna? Hey, तुम्हारा बांग्ला असुविधा नहीं, तुम्हारा इंग्लिश असुविधा नहीं तो? If you raise your hand, sometimes I can also put some Bengali. अच्छा अच्छा. तो तुम्ही बोलचे का ना शेजरा बोलो. The boys are happy, but anyway, Mahabharata. You know how Karna died? Karna's wheel, the chariot wheel, was stuck up in mud. Karna came down, had no weapons in hand, was trying to retrieve that wheel from the mud. Sri Krishna said, Arjuna, this is the occasion, finish him. তখন কর্ণ বলছে কৃষ্ণ এটা কি ধর্ম? আমার আয়ুধ নিরায়ুধ পানি বলে, আমার কোনো আয়ুধ নেই, এই সময় তুমি মারতে বলছো? There's a beautiful thrilling passage in the Mahabharata. Kwadharma gata tada. Where did your dharma go at that time? He says when Draupadi was brought to the court and Duryodhana and Dushasana heckling her and trying to insult her, and you were sitting there in the first bench and clapping. Where did your dharma go at that time? Abhimanyu, little baby, was surrounded by 9 Maharathis and cut to pieces. Karna, Kwadharma gata tada. Where did your dharma go at that time? All the Pandavas are sleeping in that wax mansion, Momir body, and you set it afire. Was it dharma? Where did the dharma go at that time? Now, because you are in trouble, you talk about dharma. Finish it. Now, here, did Sri Krishna do the right thing or no? See, you can't talk about morality in vacuum. That's what the professor just now said. Morality and truth, etc., don't live in vacuum. It should be contextualized, and the responses based on truth and morality will change according to the concept, the context. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, has been heavily criticized by so many later on for imposing ahimsa in our country. Swami Vivekananda squarely blames Ashoka for this problem. We had such perfect defense forces. He was converted to Buddhism, took to ahimsa, completely dismantled all the defense. And everybody could walk over our country, defenseless and happy, we are destroyed. Now, Ashoka's individual ahimsa belief, why should he impose upon the nation? This is a very serious point all of you should think about. My individual belief, my individual convictions should not be imposed on my family, those who are in the family. I am the head of the family, the wife and children, they have their own belief system, their own values. So because I am very dominant, I push everybody to that. Patriarchal or matriarchal. The mother also sometimes very dominant. Children, you should read this, you should not do this, etc. They slowly grow up and then starting revolting. My child doesn't anymore obey me. Why should I expect him? Why do you push your system? Convince him to do that. And a leader cannot impose his own morality and ethical values upon the nation, upon the state. And particularly India is such a diverse country. Every few thousand kilometers you see a totally different language, different culture. It's more than a mini Europe. So in the diverse country, can you have a common value, a common sense of morality, a common sense of truth? we say truth is absolute, then we ask, it is small t or capital T? Capital T, a big T, truth is absolute, but the small t's, truths, which may be contextual, you do not really know. Mahabharata is a classic example. Ramayana is a monolithic structure. Rama is a very calm, powerful being, is a great Raja. But here, the Mahabharata, they create complex situations in which you can't clearly say whether right or wrong, moral or immoral. Sri Krishna has to manage everything. None of the people, the powerful people who were killed in the Mahabharata, could not have been killed in the normal way. Bhishma could not have been killed, Dronacharya could not have been killed, and so many. But Sri Krishna sought him they would be killed. So was Sri Krishna right or wrong? Why did Bhagavan do this? These have been questions which have been asked. Even Ramayana, Ramachandra has been called to question. Abandoning the Sita. You know the story. Ramayana Golpa Janato Nagi. Sita was abandoned because some useless washerman said Sita was there in some Parapurusha, some other place, and Rama accepted it. What kind of Raja is he? Being the democratic king, he said, no. Subject yourself to Agni Pariksha. Hanuman was furious. Go Rama, who is this Rama? I'll go and finish him. My mother's purity is being tested. Finally she went through that test. She came out absolutely unsullied. Even then, it is said, some people say interpolation later on, Sita was abandoned when he was carrying a child, carrying children. Why did Rama do this? Was it proper for Rama to have done that? Sita Devi did not know anybody except Rama. So these are moral and ethical questions in great people everywhere. Whoever has attained greatness, they may have lot of goodness, but why did they do what they did? From the point of the canons of morality, it doesn't match. But you have a role as an individual. Head of a family is a father. He is a husband to his wife, and he has so many friends. In his business place, he is the head of a unit, or he may be general manager. He has so many roles to play, and is there a common value which can stick to be able to manage all this and come out successful? Nowadays the boys don't value truth so much. When I was a principal here, during the interview I used to ask, what do you think of speaking the truth? One boy very frankly said, Maharaj, একটু বলবো অপরাধ দেবেন না? বলো, সত্য কথা বলাটা ভালো, কিন্তু ইদানিং কোর্টে চলে না। Then I said, why? দেখুন, আমার বন্ধু ম্যানিপুলেট করে ভালো নম্বর পেয়ে চাকরি পেয়ে গেল, আমি কিন্তু সত্যের জন্য পড়ে গেলাম। তারপরে বললো, কি দুঃখ তোমার বলতো, আপনারাই তো নষ্ট করলেন। You people spoiled us. সহনাও হতো, সহনাও ভরতো, সত্য কথা বলো, বলতে বলতে মাথা খারাপ হয়ে গেল আমাদের। সত্য বলতে গিয়ে জীবনে কিছুই করতে পারলাম না। It's a very valid objection. You should listen to these things. Then what do I do? What are the eternal values which should inculcate? The answer to this is given by Swami Vivekananda. The dharma, which I told you. What is dharma? Swami Vivekananda said, the one virtue, one value, one piece of morality which is universally applicable and which transcends time and space is unselfishness. Sacrifice. Dharma is a principle of sacrifice. What is sacrifice? I sacrifice my own interest for the sake of the collective. Then the question arises that what about me? If we go on sacrificing everything for others, I'll be nobody. So some people say, keep something for yourself, and what little is in excess you give it to others. How much percentage should I keep for myself? How much should I give to others? Very tricky questions. But unselfishness, when you transcend your own little self, catapults your mind to a level in which tremendous power flows over you. You can try this for 6 months and tell me. Just sacrifice yourself for others. Because without sacrifice, the world would not survive. For the survival of the world, sacrifice is necessary. The mother sacrifices her time and energy for the children. And the leaders, at least are supposed to sacrifice them all their self-interest for the sake of the nation, and so on. A series of sacrifices go on. The success that somebody gets at the end is not an isolated phenomenon. There's a chain of sacrifices you have to go through, and ultimately you're endowed with success. Why should I be unselfish? This is also a question which cannot be answered so easily. If selfishness suits me, if selfishness succeeds, as it is seen in most cases, then why should I be not selfish? What is so great about unselfishness? The answer is, this is the rhythm of the whole universe. You have to sacrifice. You can't survive. The Bhagavad Gita puts it by saying, when you were created by the Supreme God, Prajapati, you were created along with yajna, or sacrifice, principle of sacrifice. At every point you have to sacrifice your self-interest to be able to get everything from society. You look at nature. Nature is constantly sacrificing. Every particle of nature is sacrificing, and the sacrifice of the family, sacrifice of the individual, sacrifice of the boss of the company. At every moment you go on sacrificing, and the fear that we'll lose something by sacrificing prevents us from sacrificing. I will lose much if I sacrifice, therefore I will hold on. Swami Vivekananda said, man wants to hold with clenched fists. Nature will put her hands upon his throat and make the fist open. So give gladly, give willingly. Nature will snatch away from you. You can't for long hold on and say, this is mine. Nothing is yours. Because the entire world is based upon the principle of interconnectedness, interrelatedness, and therefore interdependence. These are fundamental scientific and philosophical religious principles on which the whole of life and nature is based. Can you say you are independent of everybody? Can you say I am not related to anybody? Buddha developed this great idea, finally developed in a great way by Nagarjuna into Shunyavada, void, and Shunyavada leads to Mahakaruna, which is compassion and love. The genius of Buddha and the later philosophers following Buddha like Nagarjuna and the Madhyamika Buddhism was that he realized that the entire world is an interconnected whole. Later on, people like Einstein made it on sound scientific foundations. Newton's idea, Einstein's idea of the theory of relativity, the general theory, gravitation, clearly is based upon a Max principle German, Max was German, which says the entire universe is a integrated, undivided, indivisible whole, and every small perturbation in a part of this whole will immediately affect the entire whole. The example which is given very funnily, if I lift a little finger here, I will affect star out there. Because we are all connected. We are physically connected. My body, your body, all the bodies here are part of an infinite ocean of matter. And my mind, your mind, all are connected. And the entire thing is a part of a universal mind called Hiranyagarbha in or Mahat in Vedanta and Sankhya. And your spirit, my spirit, everything is connected to the Supreme Spirit called Ishvara. At every level you are connected. This interconnectivity leading to interrelatedness and leading to interdependence is a fundamental principle of the entire universe and nature. This is the rhythm of nature. And if you don't vibrate according to this rhythm, you will suffer. Why do we suffer? Even physically, if you see, our boys also suffer. They go out and take junk food and fast food, and the food you're not supposed to be eaten, you fill it to your stomach. And you feel terrible pain in the stomach at 10:30 in the night. You wake up your Superintendent Maharaj, all the time ready to serve you. Maharaj, bete beta ki kheli ki? Na, vishesh kuch khai nahi, vishesh mein ki cheez. You eat poison outside and come and say, I will tell you. Because you are going against nature's rhythm. Body tells you don't eat. The body also speaks to you. The body speaketh, there is a winner. So body has its own sensitivity. Mind has its own sensitivity. It speaks to you. Have you seen animals, dogs? If a dog is not well, even the best food that you get, it will not touch. It's like feeling slightly feverish, it will go, it will not eat. Because it cannot discriminate, it has no power to think closely. Nature has given us an instinct by which not to eat so that it will fall ill. In the case of a human being, nature has given us full freedom to do what you like. Along with that, nature has also endowed you with a viveka, discernment to find out what is right and what is wrong. What is right and what is wrong is a sense of morality and ethics. You are doing injustice to your body if you fill it with junk food, because your body is trying to help you all the time. My body is always cooperating with me, but I am punishing this body by eating things which should not be eaten just because I find it very tasteful. So I am punishing my body, I am doing injustice to the body. I am doing injustice to my mind by filling with all kind of unholy thoughts, negativity, and I am doing injustice to myself by becoming impure. Because in the rhythm of nature, these things are built up. You can't go against them. Morality and ethics are not values and virtues to be practiced, but you have to live according to the rhythm of nature, the cosmic rhythm. Then they are not practiced, you fall in line with nature's laws, that's all. You have to vibrate with the rhythm of nature. Students of physics will know when the impressed frequency is the same as the natural frequency of a body which is vibrating, then there is a resonance. And if there is mismatch, there is dissonance. Life becomes unhappy. There is a dissonance because whenever you have the frequency mismatch. If we can intuitively understand the frequency, which to everybody it may be different. My vibration may not match with yours. Let's say in a family, husband and wife and children, etc., small quarrels which come about because you have a mismatch of frequency. That's why we say funnily, dujoni bhalo kintu rashite milche na. Independently, each of them may be good, but somehow there's a mismatch because the frequency doesn't match. The horoscope matching used to be done long ago. before marriage, no more. That's because to find out what kind of frequency this man has. They believe in astrology and the various planets and so on. That means, can you intuitively, deeply investigate into yourself and find out what is your frequency? It is possible. For which you have to dive deep into yourself, your mind, and find out what is the frequency. An atmosphere into which you go. If you go to a library, you naturally feel like reading. Why? Because there's a vibration of study there, vibration of elevating thought, which naturally makes your own mind vibrate to that frequency. If you go to a temple, you feel like calming down your mind and meditating. Wherever so many people come, before they enter the temple, they are very careful, and they enter the temple, quietly sit. Morning on Sundays, last time I went for some reason, around 11 o'clock, whole temple was full of people. There is no sound. People are either quietly meditating and looking at the picture, not doing anything, simply keeping quiet. Because the very atmosphere of the temple, which has been generated over century, more than a century, that vibration forces them to vibrate according to the frequency which has been generated there. So can you find out what is your frequency and vibrate with that frequency? These are cosmic rhythm. These are not stories, philosophy. Scientifically they have been proved there is a cosmic rhythm in life. Rhythm means a vibration. And every particle in the universe is constantly vibrating in simple harmonically, as physics knows it. And therefore, the cosmic rhythm, if you vibrate, it's called Ritam Brihat. Sanskrit uses the same word. In English we get rhythm. Sanskrit is Ritam. Ritam, cosmic rhythm, great rhythm, Ritam Brihat. And that Ritam Brihat is the source of all morality and ethics. And therefore, there is no dictate. Hinduism, the do's and don'ts, vidhi nisheda, they say. Vidhi means do this. Nisheda, don't do this. If you impose morality and ethics through vidhi nisheda, through instructions, commandments and injunctions and prohibitions, then that will naturally upset your own individual rhythm. And if we can motivate people, facilitate all the human beings to vibrate in unison with the cosmic rhythm, then morality and ethics are not practiced as virtues or values. They become a part of your daily living through a harmonious vibration in tune with the cosmic rhythm. This is a simple principle. Then life will be happy. And Swami Vivekananda beautifully said, in Sanskrit, what is the word for health? Everybody is agitating before that building. Swasthya. Swasthya is a wonderful word coming from swastha. What is swastha? Stha means stay put, swa means one own. Staying put in oneself is called swastha. Moving away from oneself is called aswastha. That means try to be with your own self, higher self. There is a significant statement in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan Sri Krishna commands Arjuna, "Oh Arjuna, be Atmavan." What is Atmavan? What is Dhanavan? A person who possesses Dhana. What is Gunavan? A person who possesses Guna. What is Atmavan? A person who possesses himself or herself. Don't we possess ourselves? No. We have moved away from our own selves. We have invested ourselves in so many things outside, we have lost ourselves. There's a Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, wrote a book, Modern Man in Search of a Soul. He is searching for himself. He has lost himself and is searching for himself everywhere. Just stay put in your own self and discover your own rhythm. This is called meditation, this is called religion, this is called philosophy. Go deep into yourself and find out what is the meditation. This is what the doctors do. Particularly in Ayurveda and homeopathy systems, they say that it's all customized. Each person will have a different kind of medicine to find according to the vibration which he himself has. So many such systems of medicine are available. That means try to discover your own vibration. Try to discover how your mind and body are reacting to the cosmos. Because you are anyway not independent. Remember, the whole idea of ethics and morality comes from the idea that it is interconnected. They are constantly being interconnected. The Buddhistic philosophy of morality and ethics, Buddha emphasized hugely morality and ethics, although he did not believe in God or the Atman. Morality and ethics, Dhamma, was a fundamental principle there. How did he solve the problem of morality and ethics without having any belief in something is unchanging? He took a simple principle. What is this? A piece of paper. Everybody agrees? What is the definition of paper? This is not a piece of paper. Paper weight, put in paper. What this is paper and this is paper weight. What is the definition of paper? Paper kake bole. Jar paper to ache, she does a paper. Paper is something which is a paperness. জল কাকে বলে? জলত্ব যদি থাকে জল আছে। মানুষ কাকে বলে? মনুষ্যত্ব থাকলে মানুষ বলে। So this will have paperatva, kagajatva, patratva. Now let us investigate. This is what Buddha did. Everything should go through scientific investigation. Buddha said, what is the paperness of this paper? Investigate. This paper came here. Somewhere he purchased paper somewhere. Somebody cut some trees and take the pulp. From there paper was manufactured. ঠিক আছে তো? যে ওটাকে গাছগুলো কাটলো সেই লোকটা was part of this paperatva. Because he has contributed to this paperatva. তারপরে একজন নিয়ে এলো, তারপরে ম্যানুফ্যাকচার করলো, a series of operations in which hundreds of thousands of millions of people are involved before a paper could be produced. Suppose you say, what is the paperatva? This paperatva of this paper is dependent upon hundreds of thousands of people who made this paper possible. It is depending upon them. সকালবেলা বসে দেখুন ভাত খেতে বসে ব্রহ্মার্পণ রে বাবা খিদে লাগছে আবার ব্রহ্মার্পণ ঘিরে বাবা অনেকে বলে ব্রহ্মার্পণ ইত্যাদি রোজই তো বলছি অর্থটা কি এই খাওয়াটা সামনে পাচ্ছ তোমরা তার জন্য কত লোকের পরিশ্রম আছে দেখো সকাল থেকে উঠে কেউ রান্না করছে ওটা ছেড়ে দাও এখানে আসার আগে কত লোক ধান ক্ষেত থেকে ওটা কেটেছে ওখানে somebody has put the seed there and then somebody has transported the whole thing ট্রাকে করে নিয়ে যাচ্ছে সে ড্রাইভারও কিন্তু পার্ট অফ দিস প্রসেস ড্রাইভার ক্লান্ত হয়ে ধাবাতে চা খেলো চা খাইয়েছে he is also part of this so to make this food possible hundreds of thousands and millions of people has contributed and therefore all of them are part of this food or part of this paper. So what is the paper? Paper by itself has no meaning. paper depends upon hundreds of thousands of people who contribute to the paperatva of this paper. So paper itself has no swabhava. So Buddha said, niswabhavatva. The paper and paperatva is only niswabhava. There is no swabhava of the paper itself, except in so far as it dependent on 100,000 causes which make this paper possible. বুঝতে পারছো কি? তার মানে কোন নিঃস্বভাবক মানে শূন্য, পেপারত্ব বলে কিছু নেই। সমস্ত মানুষের পরিশ্রম, সমস্ত মানুষের যে চিন্তা সব মিলে এটা এসেছে। So by itself it has no value, it has no independent existence. এটা পজিটিভলি বলেছে, বেদান্তে বলেছেন, ফার্স্টে কি বলেছেন? এই পেপারত্ব does not have its own swabhava, niswabhavatva, which means it includes all those factors into itself. বুঝা যাচ্ছে? এটাকে তৈরি করতে গেলে, খাবার তৈরি করতে গেলে কত লোক ওর মধ্যে আছে। তার মানে এই খাবারটা হচ্ছে includes all the people, all the factors which are responsible for making this possible. তার মানে a small piece of paper includes the whole universe into this. My body, আমার এখানে দেহ, আমি দাঁড়িয়ে আছি, hundreds of thousands of factors are making this possible for me to stand and speak. So I include everybody, therefore the entire universe is included in me, positively put, or my individuality actually has no meaning except in so far it is completely dependent upon hundreds of thousands of factors outside. সেই জন্য self-sacrifice automatically is built up in nature. বুদ্ধদেব বলছেন তুমি ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্টলি থাকতেই পারবে না, you cannot be an independent human being. You have to have a dependence upon hundreds of thousands of factors, the whole universe. Nature contributes something, your mother and father contribute, all put together is what you are. Who is a human being? A person who has no humanness in the human being apart from all the other factors which has made this possible. সেখান থেকে কি পাচ্ছ? আমাকে সমস্ত জগৎকে নিয়েই চলতে হবে, whether you like it or not. তোমার মধ্যে সমস্ত জগৎ ইনক্লুডেড হয়ে আছে। I am the universe and the universe is me. সেই অনুভূতির মাধ্যমে ওরা যাচ্ছে। অনুভূতি ছাড়াও বিজ্ঞানের দিক থেকে চিন্তা করে, দর্শনের দিকে চিন্তা করো, তখনও বুঝতে পারবে আমি বলে কোনো বস্তু আলাদা নেই। I include everybody within me. I am dependent on everybody and I include everybody. তার জন্য just like I get all this, I also have to contribute. Because constantly the flow should be kept. I am getting something from somebody. If I stop this without giving it to the next man, I block it at that, then what happens? I become aswastha. Because I move away from myself. Aswasthata is equivalent to self-centeredness. This is how Swami Vivekananda derived this. Now, just a few words about Mahatma Gandhi, because it's part of the title. Mahatma Gandhi tried to practice this, put it in practice. Particularly two virtues, what are they? Sattva, ahimsa. He took hold of these specific values and virtues and tried to experiment it in politics, whether it is possible. The problem is, Mahatma Gandhi may be wedded to ahimsa, but what about people who are being subjected to himsa? Should they react? Should they respond or no? This is the moral dilemma of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita bole boi ache jano to? Who is the hero there? Arjuna. Arjuna's সমস্যাটা কি? যখন এসেছিল যুদ্ধ করতে, he is full of valor and strength. Kairmaya sahyodhavyam asmin ranasamuttime. I want to see the faces of people who are eager to die at my hands. I can't see them later, so let me first see them. So much of valor, he collapses. By seeing my own people, his own acharyas, Drona, Bhishma, who taught him the archery, then completely collapses, loses all confidence. Because he wanted to practice ahimsa. Now, Arjuna's practice of ahimsa and his crime, was it right or wrong? Mahatma Gandhi may say, no, you should not have fought the war, because himsa. Somebody comes and cuts your throat, and you say, bhai, keno mar galata kachchis? Let us go for a negotiation on the table. ওইসে গলা কাটছে তোমাকে, উল্টো করে গলাটা কাটছে, কোনটা ঠিক? Swamiji has a story. স্বামীজির গল্পটা হচ্ছে উল্টো সমজলি রাম। উল্টো সমজলি রাম বলতে একজন সাধু প্রার্থনা করে যাচ্ছে, রাম আমাকে ঘোড়া দাও, একটা আমি হাঁটতে পারছি না, please give me a horse. At that time some dacoits had plundered some wealth, put it on a pony, and then they are taking it. Then the pony became ill. তখন ওরা বললো, এই সাধুকে তো থাপ্পড় দিল, পনিটা কাঁধে করে চল। তখন হলো, প্রভু রাম, আমি এটা ঘোড়া চাইলাম তার উপরে চড়বো বলে, ঘোড়া আমার উপরে চড়ছে। Swamiji told the story and said, উল্টো সমঝলি রাম, ওদের ঠাকুর মানে বুঝতে পারছো তো, যিশু, তুমি বললেন একজন তোমার একটা চোট মারে, তুমি আর একটা দেখিয়ে দাও, আর একটা চোট মারো। কেউ তোমার সম্পত্তি কেড়ে নেয়, তার পেছনে পেছনে সব দিয়ে দাও। Somebody takes you your coat, give him a cloak also. Resist not evil. খুব ভদ্র, ভালো, আমি অহিংসা প্র্যাকটিস করব। আমাদের ঠাকুর কে? শ্রীকৃষ্ণ বলেন, তস্মাত্মুত্তিষ্ঠ যশোলভস্ব জিত্বা শত্রুন ভুংস রাজ্যম সমৃদ্ধম। উঠো, শত্রুকে পুরো শেষ করো, এ রাজ্যকে ভোগ করো। হায় হায় ভগবান, হে রাম, ওদের ঠাকুরের কথা আমরা নিয়ে নিয়েছি, আমাদের ঠাকুরের কথা ওরা নিয়ে নিয়েছে। ওখানে কিন্তু ছাড়বে সহজে? সঙ্গে সঙ্গে দেখো যুদ্ধগুলো হচ্ছে, আমি তো প্রথমে মারিনি, তুই যখন মেরেছিস, আই গিভ ইউ ব্যাক। এখন মারল ডায়লামা, প্রতি মুহূর্তে মারল ডায়লামা, অহিংসাকে ধরে রাখতে তো হবে না। স্বামীজি বললেন, অশোকের অহিংসার জন্য ইন্ডিয়ার বিশাল ক্ষতি হয়েছে। সেজন্য দিস আর অল কোয়েশ্চেন্স। ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালি তো অহিংসা প্র্যাকটিস করো, নিরামিষ খাও, না খেয়ে মরো, যা খুশি করো, কিন্তু সমস্ত পরিবারকে নিরামিষ খেতে হবে, সমস্ত জাতিকে নিরামিষ খাওয়াতে হবে, সমস্ত রাষ্ট্রকে নিরামিষ খাইয়ে দুর্বল করিও না। এতে আছে যারা লাদাখের মধ্যে, এর মধ্যে ডিফেন্সে ঘাস খেয়ে থাকবে না ওরা। So don't impose your individual values of ahimsa and all that on the nation, on the people. So it's a very complex situation. So what is to be done? What is শেষ করে দিচ্ছে? তাহলে কি করতে হবে? The solution is given in the Hindu religion. Mahatma Gandhi practiced it in politics. Perhaps partially he was successful, we don't know. A lot of debates and counter debates. The partition of India is a great example. Whether we should have done it at all. Now that's a different story. What is to be done? So Hindu Shastras say, you develop in you a capacity by which you are able to discern from moment to moment what is right and what is wrong, what is to be done, what is not to be done. It's called Satviki Buddhi, called Dhi in the Gayatri Mantra, Thiyo Yona Prachodayat. It's called Prajna in Yoga Sutra, Prajna Loka, the awakened higher intelligence which will guide you continuously along your path. Pravrittam cha nivrittam cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham cha yaveti buddhissa partha satviki. Gita says that satviki buddhi, awakened intelligence, that light of Dhi, by which karya akarya, what is to be done, what should not be done, what is pravritti and what is nivritti, karya, and where you should be fearful, where you should be without fear. That capacity to be able to discern between these two and decide what is to be done at that moment, that capacity is called the Satviki Buddhi. Develop that Buddhi within yourself. That's why Gayatri Mantra is the first mantra given to a Hindu child when he goes for education. Gayatri Mantra jop kore, prarthana kore, pavitra jivan, brahmacharya avalamban kore, তখন সাত্বিকী বুদ্ধি ওর হয়ে যায়. Through that he will be able to discern what is right and what is wrong, what should be done, what should not be done, because at every point the context may differ. The fundamental values, the most fundamental value which is universal, which is the basis of all this morality and ethics, is unselfishness. So Vivekananda therefore said, unselfishness is God. Ishwarer jodi shunga jodi chao, নিঃস্বার্থতা. আমার সেলফের জন্য একটা অবজারভেশন করে শেষ করছি আমি. Why is unselfishness even scientifically necessary? স্কুলে তোমরা পড়েছো ম্যাকডিবার্স হেমিস্ফিয়ার্স বলে এক্সপেরিমেন্ট আছে. দুটি অর্ধগোলাকার, two hemispheres are put together and the air within is pumped out. You can't separate these two even with several horses. বুঝতে পারছো কি? কয়েক ঘোড়া নিয়ে দুটিকে কিন্তু পৃথক করতে পারবে না, বিকজ ইউ আর পুট টুগেদার অ্যান্ড এয়ার ইজ পাম্পড আউট. কি হয়েছে ভিতরে? শূন্য স্থান তৈরি হয়েছে, ভ্যাকিউম, অ্যান্ড এক্সটার্নাল এয়ার ট্রেমেন্ডাস প্রেশার ট্রাইং টু এন্টার ইট. সেই জন্য পৃথক করতে পারছো না. হোয়াট ইজ দ্য লেসন ফ্রম দিস? যত খালি করবে ততই আসবে তোমার কাছে. আই অলওয়েজ টেল দ্য স্টুডেন্টস এ প্যারাডক্স. যদি কোনো জিনিস পেতে চাও, the only way to get it is not to want it. ওই জিনিসটা চাইবে না, তোমার কাছে ঠিক আসবে ওটা, তার পিছনে ছুটবে, আরো চলে যাবে. আমার দরকার নেই, আমি what if I deserve it, I will definitely get it. Swami Vivekananda says, you will get what you deserve. Let us give up our pride and understand that we will get only what we deserve. তুমি যত খালি করবে নিজেকে, কোনটা খালি করবে? তোমার স্বার্থ মলিনতা, তোমার ক্ষুদ্রতা, তোমার যে ঘৃণা, ভয়, অপরের প্রতি দেশ, all these negative virtues will be empty, then the whole universe will try to enter into you, because you are the universe and the universe is you. Thank you.
Now I would request our head of the department, Professor Indrashish Banerjee, to please conduct the question answer session. থেকে আমি একটা মানে মৌলিক একটা প্রশ্ন জিজ্ঞাসা করতে চাই, যে আমরা জানি যে মহাত্মা গান্ধী প্রাথমিক জীবনে মহাত্মা গান্ধী যে রূপে অহিংসাকে ব্যাখ্যা করেছিলেন, পরবর্তী জীবনে তিনি অহিংসার ওই মতাদর্শ থেকে সরে আসেন এবং বলেন কেউ যদি তরোয়াল ধরে তাতে পারি। তাহলে সেক্ষেত্রে মরালিটি যখন একটা আপেক্ষিক জিনিস হয়ে যাচ্ছে, তার উপর নির্ভর করে আমরা জীবনটা কিভাবে পরিচালিত।
আমি তো বলে দিয়েছি উত্তরটা, আর কিছু বলার নেই আমার।
আচ্ছা শোভনলাল বাবু, আপনাকে আমার দুটো প্রশ্ন জিজ্ঞাসা করা আছে। এক হচ্ছে, আপনি যখন হেগেল থেকে ওই হিটলারের সম্পর্কে বললেন, ফ্রম হেগেল টু হিটলার, তো সেক্ষেত্রে আমার প্রথম জিজ্ঞাসা সেটা হচ্ছে হেগেল বা কান্টের যে মতাদর্শ, আমরা জানি হেগেলটা সম্পূর্ণরূপে অধিকাংশটাই ভাববাদী। সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা মরালিটি মানে তাদের রাষ্ট্র ব্যবস্থাকে চূড়ান্ত হিসাবে দেখিয়েছে। তাহলে মরালিটিটাকে, সেই রাষ্ট্রটাকে চূড়ান্ত হিসাবে দেখানো জন্যই কি মরালিটিটাকে তারা আরো বেশি রাষ্ট্র ব্যবস্থা বা প্রাধান্য প্রতিষ্ঠা করার চেষ্টা করেছে? আর এইটা একটা। আর দুই হচ্ছে যে হিটলারকে আপনি মানে হিটলারের যে মতাদর্শটা, সেক্ষেত্রে কিছু ওই যে রাষ্ট্রের জন্য মানুষের উৎসর্গ হওয়াটা, তো সেক্ষেত্রে সেটাকে মরালিটির কিছুটা আপেক্ষিক হিসাবে দেখতে পারি। আবার তারই কিছু কাজকর্মকে আমার মানে আত্মবিরোধী হিসাবে দেখতে পারি। তাহলে কি হিটলার মরাল লিডার নাকি হিটলার আনমরাল লিডার, যদি এটা বলে। এই দুখানা প্রশ্ন।
আমি তোমার দুটো প্রশ্নকে একসঙ্গে করে উত্তর দিচ্ছি, মানে একটাই উত্তর দুটো প্রশ্ন, যেটা আমি হয়তো বলার সময় সবটা তোমাদের কাছে পরিষ্কার হয়নি। সেটা হচ্ছে যে কোনো একটা এই ধরনের ফ্যাসিস্ট আইডিওলজি তারা যেটা করার চেষ্টা করে বা বলার চেষ্টা করে, সেটা হচ্ছে একটা মানে আমাদের এই যে সমাজ ব্যবস্থা, সেই সমাজ ব্যবস্থার মধ্যে যে কাঠামোগুলো আছে বা সেখানে যিনি ব্যক্তি আছেন, যিনি নেতা বা নেত্রী, যিনি থাকুন না কেন, মানে তাদের ভেতর দিয়েই মানে এই যেটা আমি বললাম আগে, যে একটা সামথিং ট্রান্সেন্ডেন্টাল, একটা ঐশ্বরিক কিছু ব্যাপার যেটা আমার ধরাছোঁয়ার বাইরে, কিন্তু সেটারই মানে বহিঃপ্রকাশ হচ্ছে এগুলোর ভিতর দিয়ে। সুতরাং এইগুলোকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখতে হবে। যা কিছু সমাজের মধ্যে রয়েছে তা কোনো কিছুকে ডিস্টার্ব করা চলবে না। যা চলে আসছে সেটাকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখাটা, সে তার মধ্য দিয়ে ওই ঐশ্বরিক ভাবনাটা এটা বাস্তবায়িত, এইটাই হচ্ছে তাদের নৈতিক ভাবনা। সেই জন্যে আমাকে যখন নাকি সেই নেতা বা নেত্রী যখন নাকি আহ্বান করছেন যে তুমি যুদ্ধের জন্য প্রস্তুত হও, বা যুদ্ধ অত্যন্ত ভালো জিনিস, অমুককে হত্যা করো বা অমুককে করো, সেটা করে কি হচ্ছে না, আমারই নৈতিক উন্নতি হচ্ছে, আমার নৈতিক উৎকর্ষটা বৃদ্ধি হচ্ছে। অর্থাৎ এটাতে আমার মানে দুঃখিত হওয়ার বা লজ্জিত হওয়ার বা অপরাধী মনে করার কোনোই কারণ নেই। তো ওই যে নেতা বা ওই যে নেত্রী, তারা যে ব্যাপারগুলো বলছেন বা যা কিছু করছেন, তার মাধ্যমেই যেন ঐশ্বরিক অনুভূতিটা, মানে ঈশ্বরের সঙ্গে আমার যেন একটা লিঙ্ক তৈরি হয়েছে, এইভাবে তারা ব্যাপারটাকে বোঝাবার চেষ্টা করে এবং মানুষও সেইভাবেই বোঝে। এই হচ্ছে ব্যাপার।
Good afternoon, sir. So I am Dipanjan. I teach English in this college. My question is to Professor Dr. Gupta. I was meticulously taking down your ideas. There's so many. Sir, you were talking about the last paragraph in Prince and the image of that ideal prince who is welcomed by the people. But sir, I think this is a very problematic image. You know, I was reminded of Julius Caesar, the opening scene of Julius Caesar as Caesar comes back to Rome and is welcomed by the people. In less than 3 acts, he is murdered on charges of tyranny. Going back to the text, the prince, which I think is a point that we tend to miss, is that in the text, Machiavelli speaks of the ideal prince in terms of the lion and the fox. He speaks of a centaur, a half human, half horse, who is the ideal teacher to the prince. Therefore, right from Aristotle, this notion of being the proper human, there is an animal element that we miss, which I think the recent Italian philosopher Giorgio Agamben has worked on in his book The Open, Man and Animal. This is the first thing that I wanted to point out. The second thing, I was also reminded of the German Jewish philosopher Hannah Arendt and her book Eichmann in Jerusalem, A Report on the Banality of Evil, where Eichmann, who had organized all these transports to the concentration camps, during the trial in Jerusalem, quite astonishingly says that he's a Kantian. And when the judge asks him that how are you a Kantian, he says that he comes up with a fairly good definition of Kantian categorical imperative, and he says that act in such a manner that the principle governing your action has the potential to become the principle of common law. Now, a thief would know that his action is immoral, because if the principle governing his action, which is theft, if that becomes the general principle of law, then he himself will be subject to theft. But in Hitler's Germany,
Dipanjan, you are not supposed to give a lecture. Please ask a question, simple question.
so it's actually, the thing is related. But I'm trying to
Maybe related, but still, question should be brief, precise. If you have understood anything at all, be very precise and say, this is what I want to know.
But the basic thing is that this got disrupted. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that this normative idea of ethics, does not the individual, also in the normative idea of the ethics, play a very key role in determining what is universal? The individual has a distinctive role to play. That is what I was trying you to comment on this, sir.
Is it a question or a comment?
This comment which is not short, Maharaj, but then
It was not really very clear to me. Anyway, I will respond just by making 2 points, if I've understood you properly. One is that yes, you are right. In Machiavelli's Prince, and that was in fact the point which I tried to focus on. In Machiavelli's Prince, for example, yes, both these things are there, and that is one is what should be the proper conduct of the prince, how the prince will project himself before the people. He should be a symbol of fear, this centaur, this image. All these things are true. But there is another point, there is another side of prince. This Julius Caesar analogy, I don't think it's a very proper analogy, because in Machiavelli's Prince, in the last paragraph, that is an imaginary prince, the prince of the future. And the entire projection of the prince, particularly in the last paragraph, he is coming. He has not yet arrived, and the people are welcoming him. The people are ready to receive the prince. That is the kind of spirit which is there. This is number one. Regarding Hannah Arendt and all these things, that is a very interesting analogy. In fact, I would say that this point I did not have the time to explain. That is, if somebody say two things. One is, I have done a crime. Fine. Now, I have done a crime, you are considering it as a crime. For me, it is not a crime, because I have been driven by my own categorical imperative to do something. A kind of moral impulse that has driven me to do this. Number one. Number two, that was the law at that time. That was the law at that time, and I just followed the law. That's it. So why?
What I was trying to get at was the essential distinction between law and order, which collapsed in Germany during Hitler's reign. There is an order, and there is law. So all orders need not be legal, and there is this moral determination of orders at times to determine whether that is legal or illegal.
No, but once an order has been issued by the state, that is bound to be legal. Whether it is a moral or immoral, that maybe the person who is executing that order, for him that order may be immoral.
Sir, I'm talking about the moral consideration, not the legal aspect.
But that is essentially his own personal understanding, whether it is moral or immoral or not. In fact, in Germany, there were two kinds of responses. One was this Eichmann sort of response. That is what I have been asked to do, I have done it. There was another kind of response in Germany. It has been reflected in many novels, films, etc. That a person who actually has committed all these atrocities in the concentration camp and all these things, when he has been asked that why did you do it? How could you do it? You have a degree in philosophy, you have a taste for music, so how could you do it? What was his answer? The answer was, I don't know. That was the answer. I was mesmerized, I was hypnotized by Hitler's speeches and this Nazi publicity, propaganda. That was another kind. It was a very, very complex phenomenon.
I am Rijik Ghoshal from RKM Narendrapur, UG second year Political Science. So my question is to you, Swamiji. You said science is the only subject which is based on faith. We don't challenge Newton, or we don't say, I don't believe in Newton, was your statement. But then, leaving out the very basic edicts, isn't science working every single day to disprove a lot of established theories? So if belief in the basic edicts makes science based on faith, is philosophy not practicing the very same form of faith?
It's the only science which is based on faith. What I said was the common notion that science needs no faith. It is just pure reason. That thesis I want to demolish. Our whole life is based upon faith. Are you standing there? I'm asking you, are you standing there? Who do you know? Can you prove it? Now I'm asking a simple question. Can you prove that you are standing there? How do you prove it? You prove it by saying I am standing here, that's all. I am here is something which need not be proved. So if you call this faith, it is faith. If you call it reason, it is reason. Why I am saying this? The false notion which most people carry that science is pure reason, you don't have to have any faith. They're absolutely wrong. In life itself, if you call it faith, you call it Shraddha, you call it by any name, life itself, there are certain things which are not provable. There is one theory, there is a theorem which revolutionized the whole of mathematical thought, which is called Gödel's theorem. Anybody has heard of this? The pronunciation is Godel. Some people pronounce it Gödel's or Gödel. Have you heard of Whitehead? Whitehead, Russell, these are great philosophers. They had clearly laid down the principles of what are known as the mathematical, formalistic mathematical logic. And this Geetal, the young boy, who's completely demolished this idea by proving a theorem which says, it's called the inconsistency incompleteness theorem. You can Google it and see, it's a very interesting study. By saying there are certain statements in our field of knowledge which are neither provable nor disprovable in the system of formalistic logic. Does God exist? I say yes. You say, can you prove it, sir? I say, can you disprove it, sir? I cannot prove it, you can't disprove it, so let us be friends and take a cup of tea together. See, life is, nothing can be proved that way. That you are sitting here, you are not able to prove. Because you know I am sitting here. The proof that you are sitting here is that I prove I am sitting here. That's why in Buddhism, for example, there's a theory called the Zen Buddhism, many of you must have heard about this, which says there need not be any reason for doing something. Because the reason, if you look for a reason, either you move to the past or move to the future. What is the reason that you are here? Yesterday I got an invitation from Vidya Mandir and today I am here. So either move to the past or go to the future. Tomorrow this may be useful for me. Buddhism says just be in the present because that is the only truth. The only truth, the past is dead and gone. The future is only an imagination. So just be here. The example given is very interesting. 4 Zen Buddhistic practitioners and students have come to the Zen master. Zen master says, please wash these cups, we'll have a cup of tea. They're washing the cups. Zen master goes to them and tells them, why are you washing the cup? Sir, because you asked me to wash the cup. Second student, why are you washing the cup? The cup was rather dirty, so I'm making it clean. Good. The third student, why are you washing the cup? To take tea. Fourth student said, sir, I'm washing the cup because I'm washing the cup. That means just be present. This is the essence of the Buddhistic idea. If you live in the present, you are moral, you are pure, you are spiritual, whatever it is. The past baggage which is holding on to you, we call it samskaras, and the future dreams that you are dreaming which may not be real at all, this is the baggage, this is the thing which is pulling you back. Just be in the present. The Bhagavad Gita idea, you can work, that's all. The result will come by itself, don't worry about the result. Many students ask me, what is Nishkama Karma meaningless? Unless I have a goal, does anybody go to a match thinking that I need not win a match? The example which I gave is, does anybody know, are people interested in cricket? Yes. Many of you? Can you tell me how many times Sachin Tendulkar got out between 90 and 100? Anybody knows? Please look up the Google, it's very interesting statistics. So many times he got out of. From 0 he came to 90, 95, 97. So many times. Why? Till he reached 90, he was playing the game, ball by ball, and the merit of the ball. The moment he reached 90, he was no longer playing the ball, he was looking at the scoreboard, century, 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 and he lost. So the Nishkama Karma Yoga says, live in the present moment, and when playing the game, don't look at the scoreboard. That's why many people say, when they're playing the game, the big matches, etc., they don't read newspaper, they don't look at the television, because it will disturb you. So just be, whatever you deserve you will get, work hard, give your very best. From 95, ones and twos he would have got 100. But he was concentrating not on the ball, but the result. When you walk on the road, If you just look at this, I have to reach there, you'll fall down. Particularly when you're climbing up a mountain. When you're climbing up a mountain, look at the next step, that's all. We had a very interesting incident reported by our late revered President Maharaj from Smaranandaji. He was walking with some monks top of a hillock to reach a small temple. Suddenly there's a terrible fog. সর্বত্র কুয়াশাতে পুরো আচ্ছন্ন হয়ে গেছে, কিচ্ছু দেখতে পাচ্ছেন না। বলে কি করবো? সামনে দেখছেন পরের step, next step was very clear. Then he climbed it, saw the next step. He climbed it, saw the next step, and he reached the top. আমাদের সবসময় dream on ইত্যাদি বলে যাচ্ছে motivational speakers who do demotivate us. আর একটা বলতে হবে এটা স্বপ্ন চাই, এটা গোল চাই, স্বপ্ন কিছু এই মোমেন্টে কনসেন্ট্রেট করুন। আমরা যখন ছাত্র ছিলাম তোমরাও নিশ্চয় করেছো, এটা বই পড়তে পড়তে 20 নম্বর পাতাতে আছি, দেখে নেবো কত কথা বাকি আছে। করেছো তো? সবাই করেছি আমরা। তারপর কিছুক্ষণ বাদে কত বাকি আছে। আরে ইউ কনসেন্ট্রেট অন দিস পেজ। ওই সময় আবার টাইম টেবিল করাতাম আমরা, স্কিম কিভাবে পড়বো, এটা পড়বো সকালে, এটা পড়বো বিকালে। ওই খালি ওই টাইম টেবিলেই সময় চলে গেছে, কিছুই পড়া হলো। Please get up, announce yourself.
স্যার আমি দীপ্তক সরকার, নরেন্দ্রপুর রামকৃষ্ণ মিশনের 3rd ইয়ারের ছাত্র।
অনেকে এসছে এখানে।
স্যার আমার প্রশ্ন শোভনলাল স্যারকে। স্যার আপনি স্পিচে হেগেলিয়ান অ্যাবসলিউটিজম আর ফ্যাসিস্ট অ্যাবসলিউটিজমের একটা ডিফারেন্সের কথা বলেছিলেন, তো ওটা যে কি সেটা যদি খুব অল্প করেও বলেন, যে কোথায় হেগেল আর ফ্যাসিস্টটা কি আলাদা হয়ে যাচ্ছে?
না মানে হেগেলিয়ান অ্যাবসলিউটিজমের যে গোটা ব্যাপারটা সেটা তো আর এখানে ব্যাখ্যা করা সম্ভব নয়। সেটা ছিল আসলে কান্টিয়ান ডুয়ালিজম বলে একটা ব্যাপার আছে কান্টের মধ্যে। মানে একটাকে বলা হয় ওয়ার্ল্ড অফ ফেনোমেনন, একটা হচ্ছে ওয়ার্ল্ড অফ নোমেনন, একটা ওয়ার্ল্ড অফ অ্যাপিয়ারেন্স, একটা ওয়ার্ল্ড অফ এসেন্স। এই যে ডুয়ালিজম, এইটাকে হেগেল ভেঙে দিল এই ব্যাপারটা। ভেঙে দিয়ে হেগেল একটা ইন্টিগ্রেটেড আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং, এভরিথিং ক্যান বি আন্ডারস্টুড বাই রিজন। এবং হেগেলের সমস্ত ফোকাসটাই হচ্ছে রিজন, রিজন দিয়ে সব কিছু, সেই রিজনের সঙ্গে অ্যাবসলিউট ইত্যাদি অনেক কিছু সম্পর্ক আছে। আর ফ্যাসিস্ট আইডিওলজির মধ্যে গোটা ব্যাপারটাই হচ্ছে আনরিজন, সেলিব্রেশন অফ আনরিজন গোটা ব্যাপারটাই। কিন্তু ব্যাপারটা কি মানে ওই অ্যাবসলিউটের ধারণাটা সেখানে আছে ভেরি মাচ, কিন্তু সেই মানে হেগেলিয়ান অ্যাবসলিউট আর ফ্যাসিস্ট আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং অফ অ্যাবসলিউট দুটো হচ্ছে আকাশ পাতাল করতে। এটা হচ্ছে একটা ব্যাপার। আরেকটা হচ্ছে হেগেলের আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং এর মধ্যে স্টেটটা ইজ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট, কিন্তু স্টেটের এই যে ইম্পর্টেন্সটা সেটা কিন্তু সমস্তটাই হচ্ছে তাকে জাস্টিফাই করা হচ্ছে কিন্তু রিজনের টার্মসে। এবং সেই রিজনটা হচ্ছে কার রিজন? ফ্যাসিজমের মধ্যে এসব কোনো কিছুই নেই। সেই রিজনটা হচ্ছে যেটাকে বলা হচ্ছে গাইস্ট বা স্পিরিট। সেই স্পিরিটের যে রিজন, তারই একটা এক্সটার্নাল ম্যানিফেস্টেশন হচ্ছে স্টেট। সেই জন্য স্টেটের পেছনে কিন্তু একটা মরাল রিজনিং এর কাজ করছে ভীষণভাবে। আর ফ্যাসিজমের মধ্যে এসব কোনো, ওটাকে অন্যভাবে ঘুরিয়ে বলা হচ্ছে যে ওই গড বা যা কিছু আমরা মানে সেটাকে খুব ইনডিরেক্টলি বলা হচ্ছে যে সেটারই আমি প্রকাশ দেখতে পাচ্ছি সব কিছুর ভেতরে। সুতরাং এইবারে আমি মানে মানে সেটা হিটলার হতে পারে, মুসোলিনি হতে পারে। মুসোলিনির মধ্যে এটা আরো ভালোভাবে আছে ব্যাপারটা, যে সেটা হচ্ছে যে এইবারে আমি যে কথাগুলো বলছি, আমি যেন কথা বলছি এন্টায়ার ইটালির হয়ে কথা বলছি। ইটালির যে ইতিহাস, ইটালির যে হেরিটেজ, এই সমস্ত কিছুর হয়ে আমি কথা বলছি। আমাদের যা কিছু সম্পদ, এই সমস্ত কিছুকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখতে হবে। এটাকে ডিস্টার্ব করা মানে হচ্ছে যেন ওই অর্ডারটাকে আমি ডিস্টার্ব করি। আমিও ডিস্টার্ব করবো না এবং তোমরা যারা আছে তোমরাও কেউ ডিস্টার্ব করবে। এইটাকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখাটাই হচ্ছে মানে কনজার্ভ করা, জিনিসটাকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখা। কনজারভেটিজম ব্যাপারটা এসেছে ওইখান থেকে। যা কিছু আছে প্রিজার্ভ করো, কনজার্ভ করো, তার উল্টো দিকে কোনো কথা বলবে। আমাদের যা ভ্যালুজ, আমাদের যা কাস্টমস, আমাদের যা, এইটার উপরে ফ্যাসিজম ভীষণভাবে জোর দেয়। আমাদের যা কাস্টমস, ট্র্যাডিশন, রীতি নীতি, এই সমস্ত জিনিসটাকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখা, এই অর্ডারটাকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখা, এটাই হচ্ছে আসল কাজ। সেই অর্ডারটাকে কোনোভাবে ব্রেক করা।
স্যার, আমার নাম বাহারি টুডু। আমি এখানে বিদ্যা মন্দিরের 2022-এর প্রাক্তন স্টুডেন্ট, আর বর্তমানে আমি যাদবপুর বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় থেকে আন্তর্জাতিক সম্পর্ক বিভাগের প্রাক্তন স্টুডেন্ট। তা আমার কোশ্চেন হলো, স্যার আপনি যে প্রথমে বলেছিলেন যে মানে ইটালির মানে ইউনিটি রাখার জন্য এথিক্স মানে মোরালিটির সঙ্গে যে কীভাবে পলিটিক্সকে আলাদা করেছিলেন, সমভাবে যদি আমি বর্তমান টাইমে আমাদের প্রেজেন্ট টাইমে দেখি যে আমাদের ইন্ডিয়ার ক্ষেত্রে মানে বিশেষ করে আমাদের ডেমোক্রেটিক নেশনগুলোর ক্ষেত্রে যদি আমরা দেখি, মানে ইন্ডিয়ার ক্ষেত্রে আমাদের অনেক বৈচিত্র্য আছে। এর জন্য আমাদের মোরালিটিটাকে অবশ্যই দরকার যদি ধরি ইউনিটির জন্য, কিন্তু এর সঙ্গে যদি আমরা পলিটিক্সটাকে যদি দেখি, কারণ আমরা দেখেছি যে পলিটিক্সের সঙ্গে ইমোশনকে কাজে লেগে অনেক সময় অপব্যবহার করে বিভিন্ন রকমের আমরা দেখতে পারি। কিন্তু এর সঙ্গে যদি আমি এটা যদি বলি যে পলিটিক্সের সঙ্গে এই যে ইথিক্সটা মোরালিটিটা, এটাকে আমরা কীভাবে দেখতে পারি এখন?
দেখতে পারি মানে হচ্ছে
এটা মানে 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 এটা কি সম্ভব, মানে কি কতটা মানে মিসইউজ যদি হয় কিংবা কিভাবে
এটাকে, এই প্রশ্নটা একটা খুব সহজ উত্তর আছে, সেটা হচ্ছে মানে চিরকালই এটা হয়েছে। মানে যিনি যখন বা যারা যখন ক্ষমতায় থাকেন তারা কিন্তু সবসময় তাদের পলিটিক্সটাকে কিন্তু মরালি জাস্টিফাই করার চেষ্টা করে, সবসময় তারা চেষ্টা করে, প্রত্যেকেই করে। এখন সেটাকে বর্তমানে যারা আছেন তারা একভাবে জাস্টিফাই করেছে, অতীতে যারা ছিলেন তারা একভাবে জাস্টিফাই করেছে। মানে মরালিটির একটা মজাটা হচ্ছে যে আমার যদি একটা জিনিসকে জাস্টিফাই করতে হয় যে আমি যে রাজত্বটা চালাচ্ছি সেটা খুব ভালো এবং সেটা সবার কাছে গ্রহণযোগ্য করতে হয়, তাহলে আমার একটা মরাল স্যাংশন দরকার। এটা হচ্ছে একটা। এইবারে যাদেরকে বলা হচ্ছে যে আমার এটা মরালি জাস্টিফাই, সুতরাং তোমরা আমাকে মেনে চলো, আমি যা বলছি, আমার যা নিয়ম নীতি, আমাদের যা আইন কানুন, এগুলো নৈতিকভাবে সব ঠিক, খুব ভালো। মানুষের সবসময় একটা প্রবণতা থাকে, একটা জিনিসকে ভালো আমি যদি এস্টাবলিশ করতে পারি মানুষ এটাকে গ্রহণ করে। অত্যন্ত খারাপ জিনিস, অতীব জঘন্য জিনিস, কিন্তু আমি সেটাকে মানুষের কাছে যদি এমনভাবে প্রেজেন্ট করলাম যে মানুষের কাছে মনে হচ্ছে নৈতিকভাবে এটা গ্রহণযোগ্য, মানুষ এটাকে গ্রহণ করে। আমি একটা খারাপ কাজ করছি, কখনো মানুষ যদি বলে আমি এটা খুব খারাপ কাজ, মানুষ এটাকে গ্রহণ করবে না। খারাপ যেটা অনৈতিক কাজটাকে আমি যদি নৈতিক স্তরে জাস্টিফাই করতে পারি, ওকে আমি অ্যাকসেপ্ট করতে পারি। এইবারে প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে উল্টো দিকে যাদেরকেই কথাটা বলা হচ্ছে, তারা যদি বা তাদের নিজেদের যে নৈতিক ভাবনা বা মরাল জাজমেন্ট সেটা যদি ইউজ করতে পারেন যথার্থভাবে, তখন তারা সেটাকে কন্টেস্ট করবে, প্রশ্ন করবে যে আপনি যেটা বলছেন বা আপনারা যেটা বলছেন এটা আসলে অত্যন্ত অনৈতিক কাজ, এটাকে আপনি যতই নৈতিক বলার চেষ্টা করুন আমাদের কাছে গ্রহণযোগ্য না, আমরা একটা পাল্টা নৈতিকতার ভাবনা আপনার কাছে পেশ করছি। এইটা তো হচ্ছে সচেতনতার ব্যাপার, নৈতিক চেতনার ব্যাপার। সেখানে যদি কোনো দেশে কোনো সমাজে সেই নৈতিকতার সেই স্তরে মানুষ নিজেকে তুলতে পারে, সেই চ্যালেঞ্জটা আসবে সেখান থেকে। আর যেখানে তারা করতে পারবে না তারা এই হচ্ছে সহজ। শেষ প্রশ্ন।
আমার প্রশ্ন শোভনলাল স্যারের কাছে। আমার নাম আলমগীর মণ্ডল, আমি রামকৃষ্ণ মিশন বিদ্যা মন্দিরের রাষ্ট্রবিজ্ঞান বিভাগের 3য় বর্ষের ছাত্র। আমার কোশ্চেনটা খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং একটা কোশ্চেন, যে রাজনীতিতে সবসময় কি নৈতিকতা মানা সম্ভব, নাকি বাস্তব রাজনীতি করতে গিয়ে নৈতিকতা অবহেলিত হয়? মেকিয়াভেলি দ্য প্রিন্সের পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে আপনি কিভাবে নৈতিকতা এবং বাস্তববাদের মধ্যে সম্পর্ক দেখেন?
দুটো প্রশ্ন একটু আলাদা। সেটা হচ্ছে যে সম্ভব কি অসম্ভব সেটা পয়েন্ট নয়। আমি যে কথাটা এক্ষুনি বললাম, যে কোনো কি বলবো, মানে দল হোক, গোষ্ঠী হোক, যাই হোক, যিনি রাজনৈতিক ক্ষমতায় আছেন তিনি সবসময় সেটাকে নৈতিকতার মানদণ্ড দিয়ে সেটাকে জাস্টিফাই করার চেষ্টা করতেই হবে তাকে। আমি একটা অনৈতিক ব্যবস্থাকে আমি কখনো বলবো না এটা অনৈতিক, কখনোই সে বলবে, তাকে বলতেই হবে যে এটা নীতিগতভাবে, সেটা সে হয়তো এক্সপ্লিসিটলি বলছেন না, কিন্তু মানুষের কাছে সবসময় প্রমাণ করতে হবে যে আমি যে ব্যবস্থাটা চালাচ্ছি সেটা খুব ভালো। ভালো মানেই হচ্ছে এটা মরালি জাস্টিফাইড। সেটা যদি সে না করতে পারে তার ব্যর্থতা। রাজনীতি চিরকাল এইভাবেই এটা চলেছে, পরিচালিত হয়েছে। এখন এইবারে যেটা বললাম যে এবারে যদি আমার কাছে সেটা মানে আমি তা নিজেকে মরালি আরেকজনের কাছে অ্যাকসেপ্টেবল করতে হবে, আমার রুলটাকে কিন্তু মরালি আই হ্যাভ টু অ্যাকসেপ্ট ইট। ম্যাকিয়াভেলির প্রিন্সের মধ্যে কিন্তু এই ভাবনাটা ছিল যে একটা পার্ট অফ, একটা কেন মানে ওভারঅল ম্যাকিয়াভেলির প্রিন্সিপাল এটাই মনে হবে যে আমি যে মানে আমি যে নৃপতি, যে প্রিন্স, আমি আমার রুলটাকে লোকের কাছে এমনভাবে প্রেজেন্ট করতে হবে যে আমার রুলটা লোকে মেনে নেবে, এইটা তাকে করতে হবে। এইটা হচ্ছে ম্যাকিয়াভেলির প্রিন্সের একটা ডাইমেনশন, এটাই হচ্ছে জেনারেলভাবে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করা হয়। যে আমি কখনো বলবো না আমি ডেসপট, যে আমি টায়ারেন্ট, আমি স্বৈরতান্ত্রিক, আমি কখনো এটাকে মরালি বলবো না যে এই কাজটা ঠিক, সেটাকে অন্যভাবে তাকে মোড়কে পেশ করতে হবে। আরেকটা ব্যাপার হচ্ছে সেটা আমি একটা অন্য ডাইমেনশন ম্যাকিয়াভেলির প্রিন্স, যেটা আমি আলথুজারের যে কমেন্টারিটার কথা বললাম, এরকম আরো কিছু কিছু লেখা আছে, তার মধ্যে এটা পাওয়া যায় যে তার ভেতরে, এবং বিশেষ করে প্রিন্স বলতে গেলে তার ডিসকোর্সেস, তারপরে যেটা লিখি ডিসকোর্সেস বলতে অনেক বেশি আছে, মানে ম্যাকিয়াভেলির প্রিন্সকে ডিসকোর্স থেকে আলাদা করে পড়লে একটু মুশকিল, ওইখানে এই ব্যাপারটা খুব বেশি করে আছে, পিপলের কনসেপ্ট। মানে ম্যাকিয়াভেলির প্রিন্সের মধ্যে আমি টায়ারেন্ট হিসেবে আমি নিজেকে কখনো এস্টাবলিশ করছি, ওইটাই অনেকে ভুল করেন যে প্রিন্স কি তাহলে একটা ওই যেটাকে বলা হচ্ছে ওই মানে মানে ফক্স অ্যান্ড দ্য লায়ন ইত্যাদি জ্যানালজি করা হয়, মানে তাহলে কি ম্যাকিয়াভেলির প্রিন্স আসলে শুনলে ওইটাই ভেবেছিলেন? ওটা একটা ডাইমেনশন, যে আমার যদি আগামী দিনে তার এজেন্ডাটা কি, তার এজেন্ডাটা হচ্ছে ইটালিকে একটা স্ট্রং নেশন হিসেবে তাকে বিল্ড আপ করতে হবে, ইটালি ধ্বংস হয়ে যাচ্ছে, ইটালিকে দাঁড় করাতে হবে, এইটা করার জন্য আমাকে আই হ্যাভ টু বি ভেরি রুথলেস। কিন্তু আমার আলটিমেট অবজেক্টিভ কি আমার নিজেকে টায়ারেন্ট হিসেবে এস্টাবলিশ করো? সেখানেই হচ্ছে যে আমার আসল উদ্দেশ্যটা হচ্ছে যে মানে মানুষ, এই মানুষ মাসেস, এই জায়গাটাকে ওখানে টেনে আনা হচ্ছে ওই জায়গাতে, এবং সেইটাই ডিসকোর্সের মধ্যে আরো বেশি করে আছে। এবং যে কারণে ওই যে ম্যাকিয়াভেলির সঙ্গে ওই যে মানে যেটা এখন এই নিয়ে আলোচনা হয় যে মানে এই যে প্রিন্স, মানে অ্যান্টোনিও গ্রামশি এটাকে মডার্ন প্রিন্স যেখানে বলছে, সেই মডার্ন প্রিন্সটা আসলে কে? মডার্ন প্রিন্সটা হচ্ছে ওই মাসেসকে সার্ভ করা, মানে আমি হচ্ছি মাসেসের সিম্বল, প্রতীক, কিন্তু সেটাকে আমি মানে ওটাকে এমনভাবে ওটা কি বলবো ইমপ্লিসিট সেই ইমেজটা, এক্সপ্লিসিট হচ্ছে সে ভীষণ যেন ভায়োলেন্ট, ভীষণ রুথলেস, কিন্তু সেই ভায়োলেন্স রুথলেসনেসটা হচ্ছে টু কোয়েল, টু রেজিস্ট দ্য এনিমিজ অফ দ্য পিপল। আর পিপল যে আমার আসল উদ্দেশ্যটা হচ্ছে আমি ভায়োলেন্সটা আমি চাইছি কেন? ইন অর্ডার টু সার্ভ, মানে কি বলবো মানে মানুষের যে স্বার্থ সেটাকে প্রোটেক্ট করার জন্য আমাকে রুথলেস হতে হবে, মানুষের স্বার্থে যারা বিরোধী আমি তার বিরুদ্ধে দাঁড়াচ্ছি, কিন্তু সেটা ভীষণ ইমপ্লিসিট। এই যে দুটো ডিসকোর্স, মানে একটা ভিজিবল একটা ইনভিজিবল, এইটা হচ্ছে আজকে যখন ম্যাকিয়াভেলির প্রিন্সকে পড়া হচ্ছে বা এই জিনিসটাকে তুলে আনা হচ্ছে, কিন্তু ওটা বললাম সেটা হিডেন। ওই আলথুজারের একটা কথাই আছে, মানে এটা আছে কিন্তু নেই, অ্যাবসেন্ট, মানে ওই অ্যাবসেন্সটাই হচ্ছে আসল প্রেজেন্স।
আমি একটা কমেন্ট করছি, তোমার খুব উদ্যোগী আছে বর্তমান কেন রাজনীতিতে মোরালিটি ইত্যাদি হতেই পারে না, আদৌ সম্ভব কিনা এটা সেমিনারকে সার্থকতাটা কি এটাই বলতে চাইছে ও। না, আমি একটা প্রশ্ন করছি, ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালি নেতা নেত্রী রাজা যিনি ছিলেন, ওরা তো ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালি তো একটা প্রিন্সিপাল হতে পারবে না, leave alone the politics etc. Individually a person who is in the top position, he can be moral, he can be truthful, he can be pure. বর্তমানে রাজনীতির সমস্যাটা কি বলতো? সিম্পল ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে প্রজা এবং রাজার মধ্যে কোনো ট্রাস্ট নেই, দ্যাটস দ্য অনলি প্রবলেম। নেতারা এসে একটা স্টেটমেন্ট দিয়ে দিল, একটা শিশু বাজলে নির্ঘাত একটা কিন্তু মিথ্যা, এভরিবডি নোস। কেন তখন রামরাজ্য, দশরথের রাজ্য ইত্যাদি আমরা বলি? দশরথ একটা রামায়ণ পড়েছে তো, কৈকেয়ীকে একটা বর দিয়েছিল, জানো কি না? আরে কৈকেয়ী নাম শুনেছ? হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ করে দেখাচ্ছ। কৈকেয়ীকে কৈকেয়ী হচ্ছে দশরথের স্ত্রী, দুটো বর দিয়েছিলেন, পরবর্তীকালে এক সময় বললো সেটা ভোট আমাকে দিতে হবে, রামকে বনবাস করতে হবে, ভারতকে রাজা করতে হবে। He died because he wanted to stick to truth. ওই মানুষের প্রতি সকলের কিন্তু আস্থা শ্রদ্ধা থাকবে, এটা ভিতর থেকে জানে লোকটা শর্ত। Then people will obey. Moral authority, see authority পার্লামেন্টে আইন পাস করে হয় না, moral authority চাই। ইদানিং দশরথ কি বলতো, আমি বলেছি, কিছু মনে করছে না তো, রিটেন ডকুমেন্ট আছে, ঠিক আছে হয়তো বলেছি, আরেকটা আছে, কিন্তু বর্তমান পরিস্থিতিতে তার প্রাসঙ্গিকতা নেই। অথবা বলতো আই হ্যাভ বিন মিসকোটেড, আমি ওই রকম বলিনি। অথবা বলতো বলেছি বলে করবো না, কোর্টে যাও, কোর্টে ম্যানেজ করে নেবো। কিচ্ছু না বলে আমি বলেছি এটা দিতে বাধ্য, অব্যাহতি দাও, পায়ে ধরে চাইছি, নাম কেউ পারবো না। কিন্তু stood her ground. Jashoda died because of this separation from Rama. ওই রকম রাজার প্রতি মানুষের কিন্তু বলতে হবে না এই রাজাকে তুমি শ্রদ্ধা করো। ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল পার্সন হু আর এট দ্য টপ, রাজনীতিতে পলিটিক্সে যারা আছে, ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল ওদের ক্যারেক্টার যদি এক্সট্রাঅর্ডিনারি যদি থাকে, তাহলে হোল থিং উইল চেঞ্জ। স্বামীজি সেই জন্য বলছেন ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালিটি ইজ মাই মটো বললেন। তোমরা এতগুলো ছাত্র আছে নন্দপুর বিদ্যা মন্দির ইত্যাদি, ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল ক্যারেক্টার দেখে সমস্ত রাজ্যকে পাল্টে দিতে হবে, সমস্ত জগৎকে কিছু করতে হবে না। ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল লাইফে আর ইউ ট্রু, আর ইউ পিওর, আর ইউ ট্রুথফুল, স্টিক টু দ্যাট। You will see a tremendous power will come to you by which you people obey you. Moral authority বলে একটা আছে না, people obey you. এতে আমাদের দেখেছি কোনো টিচার ঘন্টা পড়ার আগে খাতা নিয়ে দাঁড়িয়ে থাকবে, they will not waste even 1 minute, একদম পুরো পড়িয়ে তারপরে আসবে। ওই টিচার যদি বলে এটা করিস না, অবশ্যই ছেলেরা কিন্তু মানবে। যদি উনি নিজে না করেন, ছেলেরা যত উপদেশ দেন কেউ মানবে না। আমাদের ক্রাইসিসটা হচ্ছে ট্রাস্ট ডেফিসিট বলছে না, রাজা এবং প্রজা কেউ কাউকে বিশ্বাস করে না, তাহলে কোথায় চলবে?
I would like to request my colleague, Assistant Professor Dr. Shobdor Shipal to please deliver the vote of thanks.
We come to the close of the first GCS Memorial Seminar 2024, organized by the Department of Political Science, Vidya Mandira. It is a coveted duty to extend a formal vote of thanks to all who have gone out of their way to make today's seminar a one to cherish. Our heartfelt thanks to Professor Shobhanlal Dattagupta, formerly Surendranath Banerjee Professor of Political Science, University of Calcutta, for sparing time from his busy schedule and sharing his valuable insights with us. Please accept our humble pranam. It is indeed a rare opportunity to have had with us Revered Swami Atmapriyanandaji, Pro-Chancellor, Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Educational and Research Institute, Belur Math. We have had an enriching experience, Maharaj, and we look forward to many such in future. Please accept our humble pranam. The participation of a large number of teachers, scholars, and students from across disciplines, both from Vidya Mandira and other academic institutions, is grateful acknowledged. Specially mention needs to be made of the heads, faculty, scholars, and students of the departments of philosophy, history, and economics of Vidya Mandira, who participated in numbers. It was indeed hearing to have with us participants, many not from academia but professionals, bankers, and so on. It was indeed motivating. Today's seminar has been possible owing to the dedicated support of the office, administration and accounts department. Our gratitude to all associated with the office administration, without whom we would in all likelihood not have been as well as we are. We will be failing in our duties if we do not gratefully acknowledge the all-round support of Swami Mahaprabhukananda, our respected Principal Maharaj, whose encouragement has never been wanting. Here also mention our HOD Professor Indrasis Banerjee sir, who is the leader of our department. My pranam to him. And also mention our colleague Aditya Prabhu Majumdar, who is the compare of today's seminar. My love to him. Our indebtedness to our own students from the Department of Political Science, who worked around to the clock to make today's seminar a memorable one. Our thanks to them. Finally, we extend our respect and thanks to Professor Dr. Sandeepan Sen, an illustrious alumnus of our department, and our colleague whose sense of responsibility towards his father and affirmative role in pursuit of academic pursuits has instituted this memorial seminar. Thanks.